And just like that, the New York Jets season comes to an end. There's a lot to talk about in the final post game of the 2022 season. So let's hit it and get it started. The Jets face one of their biggest offseasons in franchise history. It's playoffs or bust in 2023.
You're writing the story of your own life. Never allow another man to hold the pen.
Please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button down below. Super Chat, baby. Cut the line. The pieces are in place. It's time for the Jets to put it together. Now, let's talk about the New York Jets. This is the Jake Asman Show. Here we go. It's the final post game of the season. Big thanks to all of you who take time to watch any video here on the channel. We have built an awesome community, and I would not be here without your support. So I wanted to start off by just saying thanks to everyone who's taken time to watch this channel throughout the season. We will have plenty of content all off season long, and we all know how huge of an off season it's about to be for the New York Jets. I mean, we'll start with the game. I mean, what is there really to say when you watch this game today? I mean, the Jets lost 11-6. I mean, it was really 9-6. You had the fake safety at the end, I guess, so it looks ugly. It looks 11-6. I mean, this was an unwatchable game. Joe Flacco versus Skylar Thompson. Like, am I supposed to get on here and, like, scream and yell that, you know, the Jets lost today? Like, am I surprised? No. I'm not surprised. I mean, Joe Flacco stinks. This offensive line is a joke. This play caller is a joke. I mean, for those who are happy the Jets lost, I can't sit here and say you're wrong. I mean, I wanted them to win, knock Miami out of the playoffs, get Pittsburgh in because New England lost. But, I mean, the Jets are not capable of beating anyone right now with this offense. I mean, this offense is a joke. And before those start complaining about the defense, we're not doing it today. All right, Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins went out there. They scored 9 points. Right? The Jets have not scored a touchdown in 3 games. I mean, this is a joke. I mean, I'm going through some of the numbers here. Looking at this offense, I mean, they had 18 yards in the first quarter. In 17 games this year, they only managed to score 2 first-quarter touchdowns. That's pathetic. Today, the running game had 20 carries for 38 yards. That's 1.9 yards per carry. I mean, this game was all about the offense, man. And let's start with the offensive coordinator. If there's one thing from this game, I'm sorry. Mike LaFleur seems like a nice guy. He can't be back next year as the OC. He just can't. And even Saleh, after the game, who's tried to defend LaFleur all the time, he couldn't even commit to the guy being back next year. I think today solidified Mike LaFleur being shown the door. He has to go. And if he's back next year, he can't be the play caller. Pay Gary Kubiak, whatever, to come out of retirement, Saleh's mentor, and be the play caller next year. At the minimum, they got to add new offensive coaches to the staff. But they can't bring Mike LaFleur back. I'm sorry, man. Here are the numbers on Mike LaFleur over the last 6 games of the season. The Jets averaged 11 points per game. They scored 15 points in the last 3 games. This is the NFL in 2022, 2023 we're talking about. 0 offensive touchdowns the last 3 games. Once again, 0 touchdowns on offense the last 3 games for the Jets. And how about this for a stat that's going to depress everyone watching? Breece Hall, who has not played for the Jets since week 7, led them in rushing this year with 463 yards. I understand this team had a boatload of injuries. I understand that the quarterback play was not good this year, to put it lightly. But Mike LaFleur has to go. Someone has to be responsible for this offense being an absolute joke. I'm watching the Titans with Josh Dobbs last night look competent. The Jets can't look competent no matter who the quarterback is right now. And I understand this offense looked better with Mike White. It did. We all saw it. But still, the offense in the red zone was not good with Mike White. And a lot of that, I believe, was Mike LaFleur. And just like there's so many easy throws you could scheme up as a play caller, and the Jets never have it. I mean, today we know Garrett Wilson is incredible. But a strategy on offense can't be target Garrett Wilson 17 times because that's all you could do as a play caller. I mean, Corey Davis today, 1 catch. Elijah Moore, 1 catch. The inability to use Elijah Moore all year, that alone is a fireable offense for Mike LaFleur. So we know what the Jets need to do this offseason. They need to find a quarterback. They need to improve this offensive line. That's 1A and 1B for what they have to do. But I don't know how you could run it back with Mike LaFleur. They scored 6 points today against a Dolphins defense that's not very good. They're not good. All right, the Lions defense, not good. Only scored 17 against them. The Jags defense, not good. Only scored 3 points against them. The Seahawks defense last week, not good. 6 points against them. It's a joke. It's a joke. The season was derailed, yes, because of the injuries, but because of the quarterback play and the offensive coordinator. Like, I'm sorry, man. I understand there's going to be a new starter next year. It's going to be Carr. It's going to be Jimmy G. We're going to hope and pray that maybe it could be Lamar or Aaron Rodgers. You cannot run it back with Mike LaFleur. That's the takeaway from this game. Nothing else. Nothing else. I mean, I guess I could be outraged over Robert Saleh burning 2 timeouts in the third quarter. Whatever. I guess I'm upset about that, but I'm just so disgusted watching this. I forgot what a meaningless game felt like. Because all year, at least the Jets were playing meaningful games. And today I'm just sitting there going, like, how upset can I really be? This game means nothing. Would have been nice to end a losing streak. Would have been nice to knock Miami out of the playoffs, but Miami's not any good. Then I got to see Ian Rappaport tweet, how remarkable it is. Despite all odds, the Dolphins were able to get into the playoffs with a third-string quarterback. I'm like, you're facing Joe Flacco. I mean, I can't be that upset. I'm just upset at just the disgrace that is this offense. I'm going to be 7-4 and finish the season 7-10. Someone's got to pay the price for that. If you're going to bring Saleh back, which I am still in favor of, bringing this head coach back with a playoff mandate, there has to be changes to the coaching staff. There has to be. You cannot run it back again. You can't. It can't simply be, well, we lost AVT and Brees, and that's why this offense fell apart. That's not good enough. Injuries happen. I guarantee you a year from now, we're going to be talking about another key injury that derailed the Jet season. That's not an excuse. It cannot be the excuse that injuries are the reason why the Jets missed the playoffs. It's part of it. It should not be the only reason. Plenty of teams can overcome injuries. You have to if you're going to be a good team. And at 7-4, the Jets were a good team, and then it all collapsed. They have to get it right this offseason. It starts with making a change at OC. I really believe that. I thought for a while, hey, maybe they'll give LaFleur a chance with a new quarterback. But listen to this answer from Robert Saleh at his press conference after the game today. I don't think Mike LaFleur is making it to next season.
Are you prepared to say Mike LaFleur will be back next year?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back and do my process. I get it. It is so important for me to go through process. I've said it before. There's just the amount of things and adversity that he's had to deal with this year is you can't just blame one person. There's a lot of things that can go around, and so making the best decisions for this organization is first and foremost.
I mean, here's all you need to know, folks. All he needed to say was yes, but he didn't. Yes, he's coming back. He didn't. There's just no way you could bring him back. Or if you bring him back, like, there has to be some sort of plan in place. Like, Gary Kubiak's on the staff, and he's essentially the guy that's calling the plays. I mean, as bad as Adam Gase was as an offensive coach, the one thing Adam Gase did pretty good? The first 15 plays of the Jets offense in Adam Gase coach games, they would move the ball. They'd at least get a field goal. I was listening to the SNY postgame show driving home. I think Steve Gelbs gave the stat on the broadcast that the Jets' first quarter offense averaged 2.7 points per game this year. That's less than a field goal per game in the first quarter. That is impossible. And when you start off this poor on offense, you put your team in a brutal spot. You're always playing catch up. And we know LaFleur loves to abandon the running game, even when at times it was working this year. And it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare. This offense is terrible. Terrible. I am not sold on this head coach, as I've said, but I'm willing to at least give Saleh one more year because I don't see the obvious answer that's out there for the Jets to hire. Sean Payton's not coming here, nor do I want to trade the 13th overall pick to get him because I just don't think it's a good fit right now. All right, Jim Harbaugh's not coming here. I don't want him either. I want new quarterback, new play caller, playoff mandate for Robert Saleh and for Joe Douglas, oh, by the way. All right, this is a massive offseason for the Jets. They have a team that with the improvements to quarterback and the offensive line, and assuming this defense still remains very good with its talent on it, they should be in the playoffs next year. To joke they missed it this year, despite starting 7-4. It's a joke. But if I get any calls today about this defense, we're not doing it. We know what the problem is. It's the offense. It's quarterback, it's the offensive line, it's play caller. I mean, it's a joke. They scored how many points the last 4 weeks in must-win games? 15 total points they scored in their last 3 games. 15. 3 against Jacksonville, 6 against Seattle, 6 against Miami. To finish 7-10 after they were 7-4. I mean, that is just a disgrace. A couple other things I got to get off my chest. Braden Mann, get the bleep out. Can't believe we're still talking about a punter who was this bad. Laken Tomlinson, also, got to go. Loved the signing at the time. I think we all did. Terrible. He was terrible today. I mean, the only offensive starter that's out there today, and he's god-awful. Horrendous. Got to go. And also, let me say this. How shitty was that call against Quincy Williams with the horse collar tackle? I mean, could you imagine if this game actually meant something for the Jets and that call went against them? It's amazing. Every game, there's a brutal call that goes against the Jets. And honestly, a big part of this season is the fact that the Jets not got one single roughing the passer call, and they got an egregious roughing the passer call against them in the first New England game when they should have been up 17-3. Just had to get that off my chest. What a joke. What a joke. I mean, this game is what it is. As of now, I'm on tankathon.com. The Jets have the 13th pick in round 1. That better be an offensive tackle. And also, the only thing I'll say about this defense, because I'm really not going to rail on them because I think it is what it is. I mean, they allowed 9 points today. They should have won. No turnovers today. Not good. Not good. But I'm not going to rag on the defense because I think it's got to be demoralizing to be a Jets defensive player knowing your offense sucks. Your offense is inept. I'm going to open it up now to your comments and questions. A big thank you to everyone who has already called in on the Gusbuster hotline. Reminder, Gusbuster is our official hotline sponsor. They make the best umbrellas on the planet. Unflippable, unflappable, unleakable. And if you go to gusbuster.com right now and use the promo code Jake, get 10% off any umbrella. You want to use the same umbrella Tiger Woods uses when he's on the golf course? Go to gusbuster.com and use the promo code Jake and get 10% off any umbrella. All right, here we go. Let's take some calls here. We'll mix in some super chats. Final post game of the 2022 season. Unfortunately, it ends up being a post game in a losing effort. Let's go to the hotline right now, and let's go to Daniel. He's first up today. What's up, Daniel?
How are you, Jake? I'd like to start by thanking you for your coverage throughout the season. Hopefully we get a better season next year, and I'm sure you're going to keep up the great content in the off season. But I'm going to keep it short and simple. I like Robert Saleh. I'll keep him. But if I was Woody Johnson, I'll ask him one question. And will you keep Mike LaFleur? And it's not an if, but maybe. It's a yes or no. If he says yes, get him out with him because you just can't hold best friends. Like Mike LaFleur, he would be a better DC because he makes the defense look better. It's just I can't anymore. I can't with them.
Daniel, I'm with you, man. Thank you for the kind words. It's frustrating, man. Look, Mike LaFleur seems like a nice guy. You cannot bring him back. You can't. It's a results-oriented business. And the Jets in must-win games the last 3 weeks went out there and they scored how many points? 15. They didn't have a touchdown in 3 straight games to end the year. I mean, that's impossible. That's impossible to fathom. And I'm no Zach Wilson fan as far as him as a player. I like him personally, but you can't blame Zach Wilson these last 2 weeks. This is on the coordinator. And yes, there's injuries. Yes, the offensive line's in shambles. It is not good enough. It is not good enough. Alex, next up. What's up, Alex?
What's going on, Jake? I was really trying to give LaFleur the benefit of the doubt going into this game, saying, listen, I think they're going to make changes. I think they're going to fire like Calabrese, John Benton. I mean, today, I don't know if this was an entire example this season of why John Benton needs to go. Laken Tomlinson is handpicked guard from San Francisco, who was anywhere from like pretty good to great consistently in San Francisco, has been a disaster this year. He's been worse this year than GVR was last year.
Yeah, I mean, he was. What's crazy though, Alex, and like I can't kill. Like I liked the signing because I'm like this guy was in the Pro Bowl last year.
I thought he would be a lot better.
The same scheme, and he was horrendous this year.
But it's not even just that. It's just the precipitous decline with Fant, with Dwayne Brown, with him, even McGovern in the second half of the year. I mean, look, the last good offensive line coach we had, actually great offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, Like we saw what he was able to do with a bunch of young players. We're going to be drafting someone. I think that a new offensive line coach is a must in addition to quarterback coach. And at this point, LaFleur, I mean, the play calling is just, I don't know what happened to his creativity. I don't know if he's just tuned out at this point in the season, but it seems like every first down is an inside zone run in the same location in the same place. There's no creativity. I don't think there's been a single end around. Whatever happened to the Strevler package, I guess that was never a thing in the first place. I really think he's got to go at this point, unfortunately for him, or unless he's willing to take a lesser role next year, in which, I'm okay keeping him around. But I really think this offensive coaching staff is going to have to be completely turned over, because let's be honest, like, I'm not a fan of Zach. I was never a fan of Zach going into the draft. My pre-draft comp for Zach was Drew Lock. So that kind of tells you what I thought about him. But I will say this, with the way LaFleur has been calling games this year, I do not think there is a single second-year quarterback in the league this year who would have succeeded with that. I just don't. I mean, he doesn't call a game that is, first of all, the way he calls games is not positive for what Justin Fields does well. Trevor Lawrence, I just don't see it. I think there needs to be a cleaning out of this entire offensive coaching staff, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Alex. I think most Jet fans agree. I mean, something has to be done when you start 7-4 and collapse. I don't want to hear, I heard Robert Saleh with Bob Lashusen driving to the Jet Bar today on the Jet Radio pregame. Well, if we started slow and then finished, people would be really excited. That's not how this works, Saleh. You started 7-4 and then you collapsed. Let's talk about what happened, not reverse the records. All right, there's different ways to get to your record. When I picked the Jets to go 7-10 this year, I didn't imagine they'd start 7-4 and then they would collapse. All right, this was not good enough this year. I don't want to hear anyone try and sell this year as some sort of positive. Yes, there are building blocks on this team, but that's not good enough. This team now needs to be in the playoffs next year, or changes need to be made. Changes need to be made now, but I'm talking about like wholesale changes a year from now if they miss the playoffs. It's not good enough, man. It's not good enough for this offense to be this poor. Now, when you look around the league and you see all these like crappy quarterbacks able to at least put together a touchdown drive, if the Jets did that today, they win. But they were incapable of doing such a thing. 18 yards of offense in the first quarter. 38 rushing yards today. No touchdowns the last 3 games. It's pathetic. Kyle with a super chat. We'll get to super chats and more of your calls coming up here. Can we finally drop the Mike White thing? There's still a subset of Jet fans who think he's the guy. He was 1-3 this year, not overly impressive. Mike White should be on the team next year as the backup quarterback. No way in a do or die year would I bring back Mike White as the unquestioned QB1. I think Mike White is the perfect backup for the Jets. Maybe he's better than that. Unfortunately for him, he got hurt. I'd like to see Mike White on the team as the backup next year. You are not bringing Mike White in as the unquestioned starter. Alex with a super chat says, Lakin has become legitimately worse than GVR, and John Benton, who has overseen this O-line collapse, was pleading for the team to sign him, fire Benton. I mean, it's tough because when they were dealing with a ton of injuries, I remember Jet fans were praising John Benton. So we'll see what changes they make. I wouldn't be in favor of a total overhaul on the offensive coaching side. Brian P. with a super chat. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your support. Green Empire Lawn Care says, Jake, we need to be a pass-first team next year. Stats show running backs with ACL injury aren't the same in year 2. However, they explode in year 3. Every running back is different coming off that. The Jets say Brees will be ready to go for training camp, so we'll see. Regardless, you need to be pass-first in general in the NFL. And if you're not pass-first, you need to be pass-competent. Let's start there. The Jets are not competent at throwing the football. Zach Wilson led them with 6 touchdown passes this year. 6. It's the NFL, for crying out loud, in 2023. It's embarrassing. Back to your calls. We go. We got another Alex on the Gusbuster hotline. What's up, Alex?
What's going on, Jake? Hey, man, I love the show. I never called in before, but yeah, I agree with everything you've already said. One thing I do want to say, though, is this defense showed up week in and week out ready to play. They were the only unit to show up and look like they wanted to play. Mm-hmm. They gave up, 9 points today. Last week, the first half was pretty ugly, but then they tightened down. The offense, the entire season, even their 7 wins that they got, has just let them down. All the Jets' wins were luck, really, and it went both ways, kind of too. with a few of their losses. You know, the New England loss with the special teams, and then the drop pass by Berrios. But all in all, I mean, I'd like to see Quan Alexander back. I know he's a free agent, but the dude makes some plays. Quincy Williams, the dude's gotten a lot better as the season went on. I know there's a missed tackle here and there, but overall, right, like top 5 unit in the NFL. You can't really bash them. I know there's dudes in your chat all the time that are like, oh my God, they missed tackles. They did it. It's like, dude, they held them to 9 points. I don't care if it was a backup quarterback or a starter. But Jeff Ulbrich needs to come back. I just wish they would rush more than 4 every now and then. You saw what happened when they brought in Quincy off the edge on a blitz, and he took out Skylar Thompson.
Alex, good call, man. Look, this defense is not perfect, and they got to get better at linebacker. They got to get better at safety. You know, there's some moves they got to make on this defensive line. You know, do they give Jermaine Johnson the starting role next year because they're maybe cutting Carl Lawson, or JFM's a cap casualty? There's some things they could do. But overall, this defense a year ago was the worst in football. They were 32nd. They're going to finish in the top 5. They're going to finish in the top 5. So, yeah, there were some issues with the defense. They were not perfect. They did not come out against Seattle last week and play well. They did not go out there against the Detroit Lions and get the stop when they needed to on the 4th and inches play. But it is tough to kill this defense when the offense is this inept. You can't. Like, no defense in the NFL is perfect. Like, the margin for error for the Jet defense is minuscule. There's nothing. I mean, they gave up 9 points today. They lost. They didn't allow a touchdown in the New England game. They lost. They only gave up 13 to the Lions. They lost. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I get the stat a lot to the Zach Wilson truthers. In Zach's 4 losses this year, the defense gave up 3 total touchdowns. Not even a touchdown per game. So they have a good defense. They have to fix this offense. 1A quarterback, 1B offensive line. And this line could be pretty good next year if they get it right and actually get some injury luck. But there's a lot of decisions that Joe Douglas has to get right. Otherwise, this team is going to have a lot of problems again next year if they don't figure it out. That's just the reality. Crop Duster says, Jake, when are you going to 98.7? Well, Crop Duster, they gotta hire me. But I did fill in last week, so I appreciate it. Arizona Jet writes in, building on fire. Well, we almost put it out, LOL. This game was just a brutal watch. It really was. Jet Carpetbagger writes in, good cheer. I'm upbeat. Expected a worse loss. Frustrated we lost. We could have won. I thought Flacco was less horrible as expected. Fix the O-line and get Derek Carr, and we're a playoff team. Once again, 1A quarterback, 1B O-line. I mean, I don't know how you're upbeat, Carpetbagger, but you do you. Maybe a better draft pick. I don't know. I'm definitely not upbeat after having to sit through that. Doc Torrey says, please explain what happened to Michael Carter. Is it totally due to the inept O-line? I hope that's the reason, but I don't know what's happened to Michael Carter. All of a sudden, the 2021 draft class, other than AVT, certainly doesn't look as good as we all thought it looked. Zach Wilson. Obviously, we know about his struggles this year. Elijah Moore, is it simply Mike LaFleur is inept, or is Elijah Moore not as good as we thought he was as a rookie? You know, they got some good players like the Michael Carter, the slot corner, I thought played a good game today. He's a really good player. There's some pieces from that draft class you like, but 2021 all of a sudden is not looking as good as we thought. Obviously, this most recent draft class is phenomenal. And by the way, I should have gave him more love at the beginning. I'm wearing 17 proudly today. That guy's a stud, man. Could you imagine Garrett Wilson's stat line this season if he had just mediocre quarterback play? You know, it's funny. My buddy Buffalo Jet fan said, oh, yeah, I could imagine what that looks like. It's Justin Jefferson. That's how good Garrett Wilson is, man. He's special. He's 22 years old. Guy put up 1,100 receiving yards with 4 different quarterbacks throwing him the ball this year. Want to give some love to that guy. Between him, Brees, AVT, you got 3 cornerstones on this offense. They need to now add to it and get a better play caller. And obviously, we know about the quarterback issues. Craig Mack writes in, many bright spots this season. AVT, Brees, Garrett, DJ Reed, Q, but kind of feels like Saleh gave up on coaching after the Bills loss. Fire Mike LaFleur. I mean, LaFleur, to me, is the biggest coaching issue, more so than Robert Saleh. But I'll say this. If Saleh is able to convince the Jets to keep LaFleur, and this offense stinks it up and LaFleur's terrible again next year, that's on Saleh. Like this year, I've defended Saleh at times being like he doesn't call the offense, and the defense went from 32nd to in the top 3. But if he brings back LaFleur, he's signing off on us holding his ass accountable for that decision because that's his choice. He could bring in a new play caller. He has seen Zach Wilson be historically bad and still defend the guy, and you're going to bring back the same coaching staff? That makes no sense. Or you're going to entrust Derek Carr or Jimmy G to this guy who might not be able to be a competent play caller? Big risk there. Big risk. Let's go to Ken. He's next up on the postgame show. What's up, Ken?
How you doing, Jake? Great show as usual.
Thank you,
Hey,
Ken.
Jake, we spoke on Friday, and we both recognized that the offensive line was decimated, and I don't think any of us really thought we were going to kill somebody. But we both said it was an opportunity for the coaches to put together a plan that made us look reasonable. Winning or losing wasn't really important at this point, but it's reasonable. And when I looked at it today, it's not just Mike LaFleur. I mean, I think you really got to look at the offensive line. I mean, coaching high school, we talk about gap, down, back, or simple things. People were just running free the whole entire game. Our tight end coach, Conklin, made a great one-handed catch, but they could not block at all today. And then there's something wrong with our wide receiver core when we throw everything out and we just throw it to 17.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a great player, but your offense can't just be, let's throw it to 17. And then lastly, and you had a show about coaches. And if you keep getting rid of coaches, you lose. The teams that have the most success give coaches plenty of time. And I was a huge fan of Saleh. But God, I mean, we have the worst special teams in the league. And what we saw today was really very, very poor coaching. Granted, these are 5th, 6th, 7th string offensive guys, but our offense was, let's just throw it to 17 and people just have free run out of QB. So it was disappointing today from a coaching standpoint. I don't think Saleh did himself any favors.
Ken, good call. Look, I'm with you. I feel like it's more LaFleur than it is Robert Saleh. Personally, Saleh isn't going into a make or break year. Like the honeymoon's over. They got to make the playoffs next year, otherwise he's gone. But I think a lot of the issues you just brought up is pure offensive coaching. I mean, yeah, this offensive line's terrible, but do you ever see any trick plays or creativity from Mike LaFleur? You ever see any jet sweeps that we saw last year? I mean, the Jets didn't run that play that they ran against Miami a year ago. Remember the play on 3rd and long? I think it was a throw to Berrios, and then he lateraled it back to Crowder, who got the first down. Like, where was some of that creativity this year? I mean, it feels like the last creative play call Mike LaFleur called was the touchdown that Berrios threw to Zach Wilson week 4 against the Steelers. Like last year, LaFleur, I thought actually with not a whole lot, did a decent job. This year, it's like, where was that guy? As much as Zach Wilson obviously regressed, so did Mike LaFleur. And the way this team is so inept to start games is also on the play caller. Adam Gase sucked as a head coach. The only thing he did well, the Jets were pretty good in the first quarter. They're pretty good on their opening drive. Didn't they score on their opening drive in 2019 like 10 straight games? It was like a franchise record, if I have this stat right. I mean, and also you watch the Dolphins today, and I know, look, they only scored 9 points. It's not like they dominated the Jets, but you know what they did really well? They had creative runs. It felt like their running plays were just getting guys open, like lanes for Mostert and their backs to run through. The Jets rushing attack today, I understand they're down a ton of offensive linemen, but 1.9 yards per carry, that's a joke. 38 yards rushing. And we keep hearing how, well, the Jets want to be like the Niners. Well, you know what the Niners do? It doesn't matter who their running back is or who their O-lines are. They just figure it out. They run the ball. That's how Brock Purdy could come in and look good. LaFleur's supposed to be that. He's not the guy. He's not. I would pay a boatload. I don't think Frank Reich's coming here personally from what I've heard. So I would pay a boatload of money to Gary Kubiak, get him out of retirement, have him be the play caller next year. That's the guy who hired Saleh with the Texans, gave him his start. Those two remain close. I know Samini wrote about it today in his story on ESPN.com. I'm going to do some digging on Kubiak because I have some connections to him being down here in Houston. That's a guy, if Saleh calls, hopefully he can bring him on board. Like that type of experienced play caller they need next year to take the next step. Some super chats here, then we get back to your calls. Kevin writes in, Saleh and Gase have the same amount of losses at the end of the last 2 seasons. Mind-boggling to me. I feel like we're a lot further than a quarterback away. Look, they're not just a quarterback away. They're not. They need to fix the offensive line and get a quarterback. It's not easy. I do think it could be done this offseason, and I do think a playoff mandate is a fair expectation for a GM who's going into year 5 and a head coach going into year 3. And you want to say, well, Douglas's first year doesn't count. Okay. A GM going into year 4 and a head coach going into year 3. Yes, I think it's fair to expect playoffs or bust. We have waited long enough as Jet fans. It is BS. All right. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in the playoffs. They had the first pick a year ago. The New York Giants are in the playoffs. They have a first-year head coach and a first-year GM. I hear Robert Saleh use the instant coffee analogy. Well, there's some instant coffee going on around the league. Time to win games next year. Mulligan, the honeymoon's over. This year was the Mulligan year with the collapse. It's playoffs or bust in 2023. Otherwise, new coach, new GM. That's it. That's a fan. If you're a Jet fan and you don't think that's a fair expectation, call on and tell me why. How much time do we need to give these guys? When is enough enough? Alex says, why wasn't Jeremy Rucker active today? He was a difference maker as a blocker. Another indictment on the floor and his personnel usage. We needed him. Agreed. Look, Rucker should have been out there a lot earlier. He was pretty good in the ground game. I can't wait to watch the film back. Nice catch he had today, too. I saw his dad tweeted, how awesome it was to see his son have his first NFL catch. Cool moment for the Rucker family. NY Jets Man Cave writes in, I want LaFleur gone with Saleh being on the hot seat. What's the likelihood of a good O coordinator wanting to come here? That's why you go after a guy like Kubiak who knows Saleh, has that personal relationship, who's not looking to further his coaching career. Guys won a Super Bowl, he's in retirement. Maybe he'll come out. The fan spectrum says, we have a competitive team. If we don't get Derek Carr and fire Mike LaFleur, it's a drop off from the quarterback. I'm still high for next year. Go Jets. This team should be in the playoffs next year if they do it right. Pazzo says, new GM, you're not going to get a better GM than Joe. I like Joe Douglas, but it is a fair expectation a year after he said we want to play meaningful games in December to now after they successfully did do that this year to now make the playoffs next year. That is the standard. How much time does Joe Douglas get, Pazzo? He's a GM for life because he's better than Izek. He's better than McCagnon. That means Joe Douglas, you can't criticize him. I mean, that's a low bar. The bar should be playoffs next year. Jets Johnny, he's next up on the hotline. Jets Johnny, what's going on? You're on the postgame show.
Jake.
You crying, Johnny?
I'm crying in a box of donuts, Johnny. Look, I went Jake, sorry. I went and I bought a whole box of donuts, man. It's no, I'm not actually crying, bro. Come on now.
I wouldn't blame you if you did. I mean, you're a Jet fan. I mean, I get it.
I mean, I it's hard to know why after today, man. It's so disappointing, man. We could go over it again and again, but I'm glad everybody's coming around on Mike LaFleur. I've been on it since Denver. I even came on after the show and I was saying, even though we won, Mike LaFleur. And I'm just glad everybody's coming around to him. Keep Joe Douglas, keep Saleh. Saleh's got to improve, though. Saleh's got to really learn in the offseason, clock management, get rid of the ties to his boys. It's about winning, you know what I mean? And that's what next year should be, because we were talking about when we beat Buffalo that 10 wins would be maybe enough to get in the playoffs. If we got to 10 wins, it was guaranteed playoffs. You know what I mean? So this team, it was all right there this year. It's really sad to see it happen, but I'm excited about next year. And thank you for the great year. You were amazing the whole year, Jake, and appreciate your content. And hopefully we'll keep it up in the offseason and have a good one, man.
Jets Johnny, I always appreciate your phone calls. Enjoy those donuts, man. Enjoy those donuts. I'm jealous. I want some donuts right now. Yeah, look, they are an offseason away from being in the playoffs if they do it right. And that should be the standard. That should be the standard. Also, how about the Jets with that last play, by the way, costing anyone that took the Jets with the points? The Dolphins get that backdoor cover on that last play for all you gamblers out there. Alex says Gary Kubiak's also older and he's been retired, so he won't be nearly as deterred by being on a playoff mandate coaching staff. Yeah, Kubiak would just be doing it as a, as an ode to Saleh, if Saleh can convince him. So that'd be my first call. If LaFleur is somehow here, then Kubiak should be brought in anyway as the senior assistant, a la the guy who's really going to be calling the shots. Alex follows up and says, give Saleh one more year with a playoff mandate and keep your eyes on McVay, who, according to Schefter, looks like he'll leave the Rams for broadcasting next year. I mean, yeah, I would take Sean McVay a year from now if the Jets fail to make the playoffs. We'll worry about that then. Smooth Will says, Robert Saleh just might not be the coach we need. He might not be. I could tell you, though, after 2 years of Todd Bowles, I knew he wasn't the guy. Adam Gase never should have been hired, but after 2 years of Gase, we all knew he wasn't the guy. At least I could tell you with Saleh, I don't know if he's not the guy. I probably lean towards him not being the guy because that's what recent Jet history would tell me. But at least I don't know for sure. I think Saleh gets one more year with a playoff mandate, and I hope to God he makes changes to his offensive staff. He gets one more year with better quarterback play because Zach Wilson was inept this year. He wasn't good enough. And Joe Flacco stinks. And, yeah, Mike White provided the spark, but Mike White's been, a journeyman in his career for a reason. I really want to see a competent quarterback brought in one more year of Robert Saleh with a playoff mandate. Because I just don't think the obvious answer to who to hire is out there. They're not getting Sean Payton. They're not getting Jim Harbaugh. So who are you hiring that is going to come in and fix the Jets? Dan, the Jet fan. He's next up on the hotline. What's up, Dan?
How you doing, Jake? I just want to take the opportunity to extend my gratitude towards you, for your amazing content and coverage throughout the season. This fan base, we deserve it. It's the least we can get for this messed up season that we had.
Well, Dan, I appreciate it, man. I mean, Jet fans are the best. We built quite the community this past season.
I agree. Anyways, yeah, as you know, I went to the game today. I did ask myself, during the middle of it, am I really going to feel that much better if the Jets end up somehow winning this game? And really, I just said, no. I mean, it doesn't matter how it went. I was okay with the loss. Anyways, here it is, the CJ Mosley autograph on my jersey.
I'm glad he signed it. That's very cool.
Me too, including the ski mask that he gave me 364 days prior in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And also Michael Carter II gave me his glove.
That's awesome, Dan. Well, at least you have that forever memory, even though the team obviously did not give you a great memory overall today.
Oh, yeah, me too, yeah. Anyways, can't wait to talk to you throughout the offseason. Hopefully it's a good one, and hopefully in 52 weeks from now, we're talking playoffs.
That's awesome. Dan, appreciate it, man. Hey, let's pause real quick before we get back to more of your phone calls. Let's talk about BUSR. BUSR is my official sports book. Sign up right now and start betting on any sport at any time. You can scan the QR code. It's busr.com/Asman if you want to just go on from your phone or your website. Start betting on sports with my official sports book. New signups get a free play, free deposit bonus up to $2,500. So check it out. We got a Sunday night game tonight between the Packers and the Lions. You can bet on that. And then the national title game in college football, TCU Horned Frogs taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. Scan the code busr.com/Asman and start betting on sports today. Reminder, this show is on Patreon, meaning every single show that you see on YouTube, you can now get ad-free from YouTube ads over at Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. Be on the lookout because I'm going to be dropping Patreon-only podcasts every single month that won't be on YouTube. So for just $5 a month, which is basically a super chat a month, you get exclusive content not on YouTube. You can message me directly, and when I have an interview that I could drop early, it's going to go to Patreon before YouTube. Example being Mark Malusis came on the show yesterday. That was already up on Patreon as of Friday. So you just get bonus content by supporting me at patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. All right, let's continue now with your calls. Let's go to everyone's favorite stoner, V-Man. You're next up. What's up, V-Man?
What's up? Hope you have something to drink to calm you, to soothe yourself after that game.
I had a couple Bloody Marys today, V-Man.
I got some what Puerto Ricans drink for Christmas instead of eggnog, coquito. It's cream of coconut, evaporated milk, condensed milk, and rum.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty good, very sweet. But man, I was just going to this game. I wasn't gonna let my really just watch this game just for I knew it was gonna be a clusterfuck comedy show. Pretty much what we got. Neither team deserves to be in the playoffs. The thing is, it sucks to lose. Although I will say this, I'd rather, if I had to pick between the two teams in the division I'd see in the playoffs, I'd rather it be the Dolphins, because I can't stand the Patriots have been spoiled for 20 years. So, that sucks. And look, the problem is the offense just couldn't adapt to injury. That's the what great teams look. Everybody gets injuries, but great teams are able to adapt and overcome from their injuries. They're able to find a solution, a workaround. Just Mike LaFleur just couldn't do it this year. Just he kept on running the same plays as if everybody was healthy. I mean, you could run up the middle if you got Brees Hall and everybody on your offensive line healthy, but you don't. You're on third and fourth stringers, and you're running a undrafted free agent Bam Knight up the middle, and you're expecting it to work. Like, what are you doing? It's just ridiculous.
B-man, good call. Look, it's an offense that flat out didn't get the job done. Injuries are part of it. It's not an excuse for to go 3 straight games in today's NFL without scoring a touchdown. Did we not watch Josh Dobbs last night? He was on the Titans for 17 days, and he went out there and looked competent. Honestly, the Jets are in the playoffs right now. If their offense was just bad in some of these games, but they were historically inept. I mean, I'll get the stats again for those just tuning in. Mike LaFleur and the Jets offense scored 11 points per game over the last 6 games of the season. 15 points scored in the last 3 games and 0 offensive touchdowns the last 3 games. That's embarrassing. Brees Hall, who has not played since week 7 when he got hurt in the second quarter of the Broncos game, is the Jet leading rusher right now. LaFleur's got to go. He's got to go. Tony writes in, is Cooper Rush available in free agency? I don't know his contract status, maybe as a backup, but if you're thinking Cooper Rush is coming in as the Jet starter next year, you might be as high as V-Man. This is what I mean. Some Jet fans are absolutely nuts. FM says, this is the worst coach Jet team. Even Gase would have won today. Let's not romanticize Adam Gase, please. We're not doing that. Stop it. I know we're all pissed off, but do not compare this team to Adam Gase. I'm not doing that. FM then follows up with another genius comment, says, bring Baker in. Yeah, we're not going to do that either. Baker is very much down on my list of options. I'm starting with Aaron Rodgers. I'm starting with Lamar Jackson. If I can't get either one of those guys, which I think is unlikely they'll be able to, although Lamar may be more likely today than I thought a week ago, I'm then looking at what's likely going to be Derek Carr or Jimmy G. And that's where this is headed. So I really don't know where else they're going to go at quarterback. Smooth Will with a super chat says, Robert Saleh. Actually, I read that one. Yeah, time will tell on Saleh once again. Get back to more of your super chats in a moment. Let's squeeze in some more calls. Let's go to Neil. He's up next on the postgame show. Neil, what's going on?
Jake, nice to hear from you. As usual, you've done a terrific job this year. It's the first time I've gotten onto podcasts because I'm 61 years old and I'm not much of a computer guy.
Never too early, Neil. Never too late.
I needed my kids to help get me on this station here and everything because I was so anxious to speak to your people because most of the guys that have been on this show were never born yet when I was watching Jet games 54 years ago. So I could give you guys some really good advice if you have a minute. I just wanted to give a few items of information to end the season. Offensively, I mean, your comments, Jake, are exactly what's in my mind. So I can tell you you're far ahead of most of the other prognosticators I've listened to. Bart Scott's pretty good. I give Bart a lot of credit. I'm sure you'd agree with me. He really knows the team. He knows offensive schemes. He knows defensive schemes. He's really, really good. But, I like your comments and what you say about the team. As far as LaFleur, who's the pothead? V-Man?
V-Man.
Who's the guy? Yeah. He made one good comment. He said, why are we continually rushing into the middle of the line when our offensive line can't get a push in the middle?
Yeah.
And now, one thing I noticed, I thought that Flacco could throw a wide receiver screen. I think he threw one. He threw it over the head of the receiver. Did you see
channeled
that?
his inner Zach Wilson with that one.
I mean, I couldn't believe that. So no quarterback, no wide receiver screens, no tight end screens the entire season. When we did have success, if you remember, we had 2 wide receivers lining up with the quarterback. That we had some success with, but we went away from it. So you could have 2 wide receivers next to the quarterback instead of just standing one guy there and handing him the ball with no play action, no anything. The defense is our play calling is so predictable. I could tell you every single play, as I'm sure you would, on that side of the ball. So yeah. LaFleur really has to go. I mean, there's no question in my mind about that. You might have to take Boyer out also because of his insistency on keeping Brandon Mann, who anybody would have cut after the 4th game of the season. After the run back, he should not have been on the team. I'm sure there was a punter out there we could have grabbed. Anybody that's competent could have kicked the punt, where they could have made a fair catch, because every game, including this one, he's always had a shank. Okay. Now I'm going to give you guys a warning. Quentin Williams has really not shown up the last 4 games. He's starting to look a little like Wilkerson to me. I would not pay him yet. I would wait another year and let him earn it, because he really didn't show up. If you notice today, he was getting blocked by a guard all day long. No quarterback pressures. Really not much at all. The kid, Lawson's got to go. He's a waste. Whitehead got trucked today on a running play. You saw that, right, Jake?
Yes.
He got trucked. He's not a tackler. He doesn't make interceptions. He's not a ball hawk. Joyner's hurt too much, and he doesn't impress me either. So those 2 guys, Davis has got to go. Offensive line, we need an offensive line coach. Maybe we could talk to the guy from the Patriots at 74 years old. What's his name? You know who I'm talking about? The old Italian guy on the Patriots. He's been an offensive line coach. He's 74 years old.
Yeah, Dante Scarnecchia is the name that Neil's referring to. And thank you for the call, Neil. A lot of points I agree with. Quentin Williams, not one of them, though. You pay him now. And also, when you go back and watch the film of Quentin Williams, the amount of double teams he's facing and then opening up one-on-one opportunities for another edge rusher, like a guy like Bryce Huff taking off this year, or hopefully Jermaine getting more time. Like the Jet defense was not the problem today. I thought Quentin Williams was fine today. I mean, they gave up 9 points. Quentin Williams, you pay him now, because if you wait another year and he goes out there and balls out, it's going to cost you even more. Plus, you need to send the message to the team that you're going to pay your own. The Jets have a terrible recent history of paying their own guys. And his brother's a free agent, too. I'd bring Quincy back as well. Quentin signed for another year, but you pay him now because you could lower his cap hit by doing that. Instead of having Quentin Williams play on the 5th-year option, all guaranteed, you can rework his contract where you get more money. So that's why they're going to do it as well. I mean, Quentin's the guy you pay. You drafted him, you developed him, you got to pay him. Some of your points, though, Neil, about the coaching staff. Yeah, offensive line coach. I would maybe do something there. Special teams coach. Yep. Absolutely. I don't understand how Brant Boyer could come back. I'm with you on Braden Mann. I would disagree on Lawson, though. I don't think he's a waste. I think he makes too much money. You could restructure his deal. If not, then you can go. So Neil, I think I'm looking at the chat here. I think you had most of the chat on your side till the Q comment. So not a bad debut call by Neil there. All right, some more super chats here. We'll get back to your calls. Let's see. Kevin writes in, whole special teams unit needs to be changed. Boyer, Berrios, and Mann all need to be gone tomorrow. Not first priority, but needs to happen. Kevin, amen. I'm with you. Also, I'm glad it took till the last game of the year for Braxton Berrios to finally have a decent punt return. Where was that all year? All year. Now, I'm so disappointed in Braxton, man. I was pounding the table all offseason. They got to bring him back. He's our guy. And he just didn't have a good year. If they moved on from him and saved money, I can't sit here and be that upset about it. They got to improve at wide receiver. I know we all love Garrett Wilson. How could we not? But Elijah Moore is now a question mark. Is it all LaFleur, or do we overrate Elijah Moore? I got to figure that out. Corey Davis needs to be cut because he can't play because he doesn't play enough. He's not healthy enough. Got to save that money. Denzel Mims, not reliable. He is what he is. Sorry, Jets forever. He's not Jerry Rice. So I need this team to add another capable wide receiver. Maybe they do that in the draft, but I'd like to see another veteran brought in that could come in and really help out Garrett Wilson. Alex writes in, Saleh needs to kill the inspirational quotes and all the other nonsense, instant coffee stuff. Talk less, do more. There's the new model. Saleh's going to be Saleh. He's not going to come out and outright bury Zach Wilson. So I understand what he's doing in these press conferences. He has to say that. Well, you want him to go up there and be like, Zach sucks? What do you want me to do? He can't say that. So I'm going to give him a pass on that. But I do agree with you, Alex, when he talks about the instant coffee stuff. There's a lot of instant coffee going on around the NFL this year. The Jaguars at the first pick. They're in the playoffs right now. The Giants were awful a year ago. They're in the playoffs right now. In fact, they're resting their starters against the Eagles because they already clinched with a week to go. All right, there's a lot of instant coffee in the NFL. The Jets need to be in the playoffs next year. We gave Saleh 2 years. Now it's playoffs or bust, assuming he's coming back, and I do think he'll be back. Ron writes in, Jake, glad you weren't at Takara in Houston the other day. Good thing for a good guy with a gun, saves lives. Also, I don't even know what you're referring to, Ron, so I'm not going to touch that. Also, what's the description of a horse collar? Ron, I don't know. That was absolute horse crap, though, that play that they called on Quincy Williams. Thankfully, the game meant nothing for the Jets, but could you imagine if the Jets lost their playoff lives and that call was a big reason as to why? Alex says everyone should be a Lions fan tonight. Hashtag Rodgers. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I guess the percentages of the Packers moving on from Rodgers or being willing to trade him would go up if they miss the playoffs. I don't know. I don't think he's getting moved either way, personally. House of Redemption writes in, Michael Carter running the ball this year has been horrendous. Not good. Salah said, it's the rookie, it's the sophomore slump. Wasn't a sophomore slump for ABT. We can't use sophomore slump just because it's like a trendy thing that coaches bring up. So what does that mean? Sauce and Garrett aren't going to be as good next year? That's a problem because they need to not be in a sophomore slump if the Jets are going to be a playoff team next year. More of your calls right now. Let's go to Jimmy in Seattle. He always brings it. What's up, Jimmy?
Man, I had to cut my hair, cut my dreads off because of these fools, bro.
That's it? The dreads are gone?
They're gone, bro. They were stressing me out. I was pulling them out. No, I'm just kidding. I had to cut it off, man.
You look good, Jimmy. You look as good as you've ever looked.
Thank you. But look, man, I think we need to have an open tryout for offensive coordinator. Anybody that has ever played Madden in the chat, I need y'all to come with it, man. Just come with it. Everybody will probably be better than what I've seen today. Today was absolutely atrocious. Let me get on Laken Tomlinson's head, bro. I've never in my life seen a dude be put on skates, moonwalking all the way back to Joe Flacco's lap almost every play. Like, it's just absurd, man. Like, man, and I already know that Robert Saleh is going to go out there and he's going to put his neck on the line for Mike LaFleur. But I give Mike, we need to do what you talked about, bring in a Gary Kubiak or somebody that we feel that can be a good offensive coordinator. And if they want to give Robert Saleh that Mike LaFleur backup, he needs to be gone by the bye week next year if he's being more consistently asinine as he's been. Bring him back, looking at since it's the end of our season, sadly. The only people I'm looking to bring back, bro, and you can speak on it if you may, Quincy Williams, I'd take him back. He could be a good backup as long as we go back into free agency, find somebody that can start and can finish tackles, as well as I'll bring back Mike White, obviously. But everybody else, give them a pink slip. Tell them, hey, man, clear out your locker. We don't need this asinine performance ever again. Like that. This was so embarrassing. 7 wins, and then we go on a complete losing streak, looking like fools to the entire league yet again. Jets gonna jet, baby. And that's all I got because, man, I need to go hit the blunt because I'm
Jimmy, I appreciate the call, man. It's tough to argue with cutting a lot of the guys you brought up. I'd bring back Quan Alexander and Quincy Williams if I can. Depends on the money, though. Because linebacker is still a problem for this team. CJ Mosley, I think, is $21 million against the Cat. That's not sustainable. Got to restructure that. I know he made the Pro Bowl. I think overall he had a decent season. It's too much money for a guy. He's too slow. You got to adjust his cap number. Carl Lawson, if he's on the team, adjust his cap number. I'd move on from JFM if I can. I want Bryce Huff back, so I got to pay him. You can't pay everyone, especially now that you got to spend money on a quarterback because you missed so badly on Zach Wilson. So there's going to be a lot of decisions that Joe Douglas has to make. He's got to get it right. All right? This team needs to be in the playoffs next year. Despite all their issues, this is still a team that I don't think is that far away in today's NFL from being a playoff team. Like, who scares you in the Jets' own division right now? I always go back to that. Buffalo's Buffalo, great. We know they're great. I'm sorry. The 8-9 Patriots, who the Jets choked against twice, they don't scare me with their situation. The Dolphins, the Jets beat them already once this year. And today, what do we make of the Dolphins, who ended their 5-game losing streak because they beat Joe Flacco and the Jets 11-6? And Tua's problems with concussions. Miami's not light years better than them. They're not that far away, the Jets, is my point. If they get it right this offseason, which is a big if. But they have to get it right. Otherwise, changes need to be made. And I'm not talking about LaFleur or some coaches. Saleh and Douglas are gone if this team does not make the playoffs next year. Enough is enough. JJ with a super chat says, season's a failure. Preseason expectations were 8-9 or 9-8. Midseason change to the playoffs. None happened. Only won 7 games. 5 versus backup quarterbacks joke. Yeah, look, they won 7 games and they ended the year on a 6-game losing streak. So I'm not going to call the season a success. I think failure, you want to go that far? I can't kill you for that thought. I don't know if I'd use the failure word, but it's incredibly disappointing. You know, when this team is 7-4 and you don't win another game, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. There's no other way to put it. Yeah, some of their wins came against backup quarterbacks, but like to be fair to the Jets, they had to play Zach Wilson, who's a backup quarterback, for 9 games this year. Joe Flacco had to start, 4 games this year. So these things kind of all even out. You know, the Jets do have wins this year over Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, to be fair. But I'm not excusing what happened these last 6 weeks. It was pathetic. Pathetic. And someone's got to be held accountable for that. If it's not the head coach, and I wouldn't fire the coach, I think you have to make a change to the offensive coordinator. XL with a super chat says, Mike LaFleur knows Kyle Shanahan's concepts and basic packages, but does not know how to scheme new plays, game plan, and calls plays from week to week. Mike LaFleur is not Kyle Shanahan. But if he was just average, I think this team could be in the playoffs. And that's just a damn shame. They haven't scored a touchdown in 3 games. 3 must-win games for the Jets, and they didn't score a touchdown in any of them. Embarrassing. Let's go to Gary. He's up next on the Gustbuster Hotline. Gary, you're up next on the show. What's going on?
Hey, Jake, I said this to you last week. Organizations like the Pittsburgh Steelers are successful because they are not changing coaches every 3 years. This organization is a joke because all of its ownership every 3 to 5 years is throwing out the coach and you're starting from scratch all over again. You will never win a Super Bowl doing that. What the Jets need to do, Saleh needs to get rid of LaFleur. That's a no-brainer. He's gone. Can't come back. You got to get rid of the punter. He's horrible. You got to get rid of half of the offensive line, the old people on the line. And Joe Douglas needs to, in the draft, with the 13th pick, get a guard or a tackle. And then build from there. Restructure some of the defensive linemen. Restructure Lawson. Maybe restructure Mosley if you want to keep him. I'd keep him because he's liked in the clubhouse and he's a leader. I'd keep him, but I'd restructure his deal or he's got to go. The same with Lawson. If you want to stay, restructure the deal so that it's cap friendly or you got to go. Because we got good young defensive linemen that can replace Lawson. We got the depth to replace Lawson, and you need to re-sign Williams.
Gary, good call. I'm with you. The one thing I'll say, like, if you had the wrong coach, fire the coach. Right? The Giants fired Ben McAdoo. He didn't make it through 2 years. They fired Pat Shermer. He made it 2 years. They fired Joe Judge. He made it 2 years. They hired Brian Daboll during the playoffs. So if you have the wrong coach, you fire that guy. You don't just keep him around because, you don't want to fire coaches. And also, this narrative that the Jets get rid of coaches too quickly is bullshit. Listen up, Jet fans. Herman Edwards had how many years? He wasn't fired too quickly. He was the head coach from 01 to 05. You want to say they fired Mangini too quick? Well, guess what? They got rid of Mangini, and it worked. They went to Rex Ryan. He was here for 6 years. So you need to get the right coach. It's not about like just keeping a guy in. Like, should they have kept Gase around longer because it was only 2? No, Gase was horrible. Never should have been hired. Get rid of him. Todd Bowles sucked. He still got 4 years. So you have to keep coaches around. I think at times longer than 2. That's like the ideal scenario. Give them time. But if they're inept, you get rid of them. All right. You think any Giant fans upset they got rid of Joe Judge after 2 years? No. So I agree with, like, you want continuity ideally, but like if Robert Saleh was horrific, I'd want him gone. I don't think he's horrific. I think he's still evolving as a coach. I'm willing to give him another year with changes to his offensive staff and give him the benefit of the doubt as far as maybe getting competent quarterback play. But like, you can't just keep Saleh around just because, we don't want to go through another song and dance changing coaches. Like, if you got the wrong coach, you got the wrong coach. I'm not willing to say they got the wrong head coach. I think they got the wrong offensive coordinator. Let's go to Jorge. He's up next on the show. What's up, Jorge?
What's going on, big timer? How you doing?
Back in the car, I see. Yeah, another Jet season coming to its end today.
Listen, man, I had an epiphany the other night. I was like, you know what? I can watch the Jets, or I can go and work and make some money. And I said, let me just go work and make some money. It's the last game. It is what it is. I know what's gonna happen. I'm so glad. I am so glad. I didn't even know the score until you said it a few minutes ago. 11-6. That's disgraceful. Jesus Christ. I am so glad I made that decision. So, but hey man, you know what? Obviously I haven't watched the game and I'm gonna watch it, but LaFleur, it's hard to back him up, right? Because I try to look at things with perspective, and it's hard to do a good job when you don't have the pieces. And what we got to realize is that the team lost the strength of the team. It's not like we just lost some good guys. We lost what was supposed to be the strength, which was our running game and our line, and we lost that. So that being the strength, when you lose your strength, then everything else gets magnified, right? Because now, and you don't have the quarterback that can, freshen up things or cover some of the holes. So yeah, now does that mean that he can't succeed? No, because I think that's what makes Saleh Saleh. When he was in San Francisco, one of the biggest things about Saleh was that he had a lot of injuries in San Francisco, and he was still able to overcome. He was still able to get his team, the defensive line and the defense overall to play well. And LaFleur wasn't able to do that. So you know what? I hope that behind the scenes, I hope that it's Saleh, because you know that the coach and the general manager, they're gonna be talking like, what do we need to do? I hope it's Saleh that says, I need to make a change at OC versus Joe Douglas having to tell Saleh, you need to make a change at OC, because I think that we're not gonna be privy to that conversation, but to me, that's what makes leadership, and that's what makes a culture, and that's what gains trust in somebody, the person that can make the tough decision regardless of how tough that decision is. And obviously something has to get done, whether they bring an offensive assistant or and frankly, I'd rather just bring somebody that takes over OC, regardless of who it is. I'm sure they'll make the right call, hopefully, but that line, man, we need to fix the line. And now that we have a high draft pick, hell, we're in great position to trade down and actually accumulate, one or two picks in the first three rounds that can help out with linebackers and safeties and all that stuff. But yeah, man, another year, another Jets disappointment. So enjoy it, buddy.
Jorge, thanks for the call, man. Look, 1A quarterback, 1B offensive line. That's the two biggest things they got to do from a player standpoint. I'm seeing some comments about bringing Rex Ryan back. Can we not? I love Rex. Rex is my favorite Jet coach of all time, obviously. But, come on. Stop with the Rex Ryan stuff. It's not happening. He hasn't coached the Jets since 2014. Hasn't coached in the NFL since 2016. You're gonna get rid of Saleh, who's a defensive-minded coach, when the defense went out there and went from last to third in the NFL this season. And you're gonna bring in another defensive coach who hasn't coached in a long time. And you want him to be in charge of overseeing the development of Zach Wilson and whoever veteran they bring in? It doesn't make any sense. I love Rex. It's not his time. Dan with a super chat says, who do you like for OC that's not Frank Reich? Gary Kubiak. Knows the system. Hired Saleh with the Texans years ago. Those two remain close. That's the guy I'm calling. Get him out of retirement. JJ says, I called him LaFleur all year. You defended him, so obvious LaFleur's been holding it. What does LaFleur even mean? LaFleur, is that like an insult? LaFleur? It's weird. Saleh, next bad head coach, has not held the OC accountable. We'll see if Saleh holds him accountable or not. He was asked point blank, is he coming back next year? And Saleh didn't answer the question. I think he's gone, personally. So we'll see. I think he's gone. And yeah, at times I did defend Mike LaFleur. When Zach Wilson was inept in some of these games, I wanted to at least give LaFleur a couple games here with Mike White, or maybe with Flack. But the sample size is now too great to defend him. JJ, here's the thing, dude. Opinions change when you get more evidence. And over the last 3 games, the Jets have not scored an offensive touchdown. So I'm not putting that on Zach Wilson. I'm putting that on the play caller. Over the last 6 games with multiple quarterbacks, they've only averaged 11 points per game. That's on the play caller. So put the LaFleur stuff in its context over a course of a season, and you have a better evaluation on the guy. After this season, I don't feel comfortable with him being the OC. I'd like a change. It's not that hard. Alan, you're up next on the show. What's up, Alan?
Hey, Jake, love the show. First comment, Houston radio is going to be a lot of fun for you tomorrow. I'll tell you that. That was unbelievable watching that.
All I was thinking about It was like, could you imagine if that was the Jets?
Oh
How
my
angry
God.
we would be if Lovie Smith, who is gone tomorrow, is going for 2 for the win after they converted on a 4th and 20 on that same drive to win the game, and they helped the Colts basically lock up a top 5 pick. So now they could call the Bears and move up and get and take whatever quarterback they want away from the Texans. I could see that happening down the line based on how this game went today.
I had to chuckle watching that. But as far as the Jets is concerned, me and you, we have different stances. As you said, do I think that we have the right head coach? I do not. And this is what I would do. What I've watched the last 6 weeks is a coach making excuse after excuse, defending his coach, his offensive coordinator, his best friend. I think what this organization needs to do, and you might disagree with me, I think they need to right their wrongs from a few years ago. I think the owner and the GM need to get on the flight to LA tonight, get a nice press box for the national championship tomorrow, and hire Todd Monken. I think he is the right guy. They need a guy who has been an OC in this league. He's done a great job. He did a great job with Jameis Winston when he was in Tampa Bay. He's about to win his 2nd national championship with a walk-on quarterback. They need to hire a competent offensive coach. As far as the defense is concerned, I don't mind getting another defensive coordinator. But as you said, do you think that they have the right coach? I do not. I think this coach is way over his head, and I don't think he wants to fire his offensive coordinator. So I think we'll do it for him. I think Todd Monken is a guy that I would hire tomorrow night after they win their national championship in Georgia. He is the right guy for this job. He can coach quarterbacks in this league. He has proven he can coach quarterbacks in this league. And I think he is the guy they should bring in. I'm tired of listening to these press conferences, making excuses. I don't think that Robert Saleh is the right guy for this job. I'm sorry. I know you think they should get him back and they should bring in Kubiak. I don't think anything changes. I really do not.
Alan, hold on a second. You want Monken as the head coach or the OC?
I want him as the head coach on this team.
Thank you for the time. No, thank you. No, thank you. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I thought you were talking about him being the OC, and I'm like, all right, I can listen to that. He's better than LaFleur. The head if they're going to fire Robert Saleh after 2 years, you know what they need to do? Hire a coach with experience so we don't bring in another guy that's learning on the job again. If you're firing Saleh, you better have Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh. I'm not even the biggest Harbaugh fan. I think it's been a while since he's coached, but like if you're going to fire Robert Saleh, you can't sell me on bringing in the offensive coordinator at Georgia as the answer. My head hurts from that call. I thought he was talking about him as the OC, and then I'm like, wait a second. He wants to be the head coach? No, thank you. How about this? How about you fire Mike LaFleur, go out there and hire an experienced offensive coordinator and give Robert Saleh one more year of the playoff mandate? Instead of starting over again with Todd Monken, who has no NFL head coaching experience. Also, he didn't do a great job with Jameis Winston. What are you talking about? Go look at Jameis Winston's 2018 season. And then what happened in 2019 when he was the OC of the Browns? I don't think he was the play caller that year. Wasn't Stefanski the play caller that season? I got to go back and look, but regardless, what are we talking about? Or actually, no. 2019 was the Brown season where they were a mess with what's his name? Freddie Kitchens was the head coach that year. Todd Monken. No, thank you. Offensive coordinator, I'll listen. Head coach, no shot. Mr. Downtown, you're up next on the Gusbuster Hotline. What's going on?
What's up, Jake? What's up, everybody? Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't.
Downtown, your audio's a little choppy, my friend.
Oh, can you hear me better?
Yeah, take the headphones off. That will help.
All right,
We'll come back to you. Get those headphones off, and we'll get you on. Let's go to David. David, you're next up.
Hey, Jake. Yeah, I mean, today's loss sucked. I mean, I don't think a win or a loss would have done much, like, if we got either. But, yeah, no, I think we're done with LaFleur. I don't really see him having a place here next year. I understand, like, the concessions, like, oh, we had a lot of, like, the line was hurt, and I understand that. But, like, there's no creativity. Like, I remember earlier you brought up, I was thinking exactly it, where we had Barrios throw a pass to Zach Wilson. Like, where was that creativity when we're even more hurt? Like, where are the kind of ballsy plays that we need because we don't have our playmakers anymore? Like, just give me something I can. The Strevler package, like stuff like that. We could have used that, but we just kind of, I don't know. We just didn't do anything. It just
It doesn't
shame.
make sense.
Yeah.
The one thing about LaFleur last year, like he was creative. I felt like a year ago, and just this year, it's like he was like a beaten man. He didn't even try to do anything different. He just kept running the same offense, despite the fact that we're well aware this team was berated with injuries on the offensive line, decimated with injuries to guys like Breece Hall, and up and down. We know that this team is banged up, but like it's not an excuse to do the same thing and not try anything different.
Exactly. And another thing that I want to talk about, I just have such a hard time believing that the Jets are so unlucky with injuries. I really think we need to sit back and look at our training staff because the amount of injuries that we get during practice is ridiculous. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a unlucky thing, but I can't see how year after year we're so unlucky with so many injuries. Becton, he would have been huge this year. He's out before the season even starts. And I get that a guy of his size is kind of injury prone, but like, come on. Like we need to keep the guys in the field because we clearly cannot win without him. We're not making trick plays. We're not Bill Belichick. We can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Good call, David. It's frustrating, man. It's frustrating. I don't know why there's so many injuries. They changed the entire training staff less than 2 years ago. Do they have to do it again? I don't know. Some of it's bad luck. Like a guy like Mekhi Becton getting hurt, like he got hurt as a rookie. He obviously got hurt week 1 and missed the entire season of his second season, and he got hurt. Like that's not shocking, but there's just been so many injuries this year. It's crazy. Let's go back to Mr. Downtown. Let's see if we could hear him loud and clear now. Downtown, what's up, man? Now we can't hear you at all. Downtown, restart the browser. We'll go to you as soon as you get the volume fixed. Let's go to Venom AD. He's up next on the show. Venom, what's going on?
What's going on, Jake? I talked to you after the Lions game a few weeks back, and not feeling any better since that game. Although I gotta say thank you for the hookup with Parts Unknown. This is my Sauce Gardner jersey. I hit you up on Twitter letting you know this came within 2 weeks. I had ordered 3 jerseys.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, they're fantastic, man. Everybody, reach out to Jake, hit him up, get that link. But anyway, I agree with most of the things that you said today. The only issues that I have are having a playoff mandate being the thing for next year. And when I say having the playoff mandate, I don't disagree that making the playoffs is the goal, but you have to see, I think Malusis said it when you interviewed him the other day. It's like you have to put it in context. Okay. Because if you go 11-6 and you still miss the playoffs, I'm not firing Saleh. I believe that a couple callers back about continuity with the coaching I agree with that. The players play for Saleh. I think Saleh is doing what he can. I mean, look at the defense this year. The defense went from a dumpster fire to one of the top defenses in the NFL. So you have to give them credit for that. But what great leaders do is that they surround themselves with people who are much smarter than them. If you're the smartest guy in the room, then there's a problem. So when it comes to the OC, that's going to be tough because he is, his best friend is his OC's brother. So it's tough to say, hey, man, I got to let you go. But what you do is you bring somebody in with experience and say, look, we got to look at the game plan, somebody to be like in LaFleur's ear. The problem that I have with LaFleur is, granted, the O-line was decimated. Our quarterback play sucked. But the issue that I had with LaFleur was the play calling and some of the decisions that he was making. For example, you don't run the ball up the middle if you can't get any push. Try doing some toss plays, some sweeps. How about a freaking jet sweep? We were complaining how much he was in love with that last year with Braxton Berrios running it, but he never ran it in this game or actually at all this season when we could have used that speed going to the edge just to throw something different at the defense. But in my opinion, even though, yes, 7-4, we were looking at playoffs, I still think we're heading in the right direction. Saleh and Douglas are a good combination. Let's have Saleh have the opportunity to rectify the situation with the offense. Hopefully, we'll get some more pieces. Definitely need to rebuild the line. And by the way, check out Michael Nania's Twitter feed because he mentioned about Laken Tomlinson that if he's a post-June 1st cut, the Jets actually save way more money and only take like a $4 million cap hit for letting him go. But Jake, thank you for all your content. You're awesome, fellow Long Islander. Way to go, brother. And you take care.
Venom, thank you for the call. Laken Tomlinson's got to go. I cannot rely on him as the left guard again next year. I can't believe that contract did not work out. I mean, he played in the same scheme with the Niners and was a Pro Bowler a year ago. He comes over here and he's been bad. I don't get it. As far as what Venom said at the beginning of that call, look, it's playoffs or bust next year with the context being, yes, the Jets go 11-6 and somehow miss the playoffs. I'm not saying fire Robert Saleh, but I'm saying like if this season plays out again next year where they're playing meaningful games in January and they miss the playoffs and they're like 10-7 and they miss it, gone. Saleh's gone, Douglas gone, clean house. They got to win. They have to win next year. How many years do you give a GM and head coach? Saleh's going into year 3. Douglas is going into year 5. Win games. It is not unreasonable for this fan base to expect the playoffs next year. It has been 12 freaking years. When the Sacramento Kings make the playoffs this year in the NBA, the Jets will have the longest playoff drought in professional sports. It's enough. I'm tired of losing. I am tired of the BS. We deserve more as Jet fans. We sit here on our couch at the bar. We watch every damn game, every snap of every game the last 12 years and have not seen the playoffs. It is enough. And then Woody Johnson's going to raise ticket prices for next year. You better make the playoffs. I don't want to hear the excuses. The Giants are in the playoffs with a first-year coach. The Jaguars are in the playoffs. They had the first pick in the draft last year. Playoffs or bust. That is not unreasonable for us Jet fans to have that as an expectation. They should have been in this year. They started 7-4 and lost 6 straight. Make the playoffs. That's it. Nothing else is acceptable. I'm not doing another year where we sit here and they don't make the playoffs and we got to argue, well, we got to give coaches more time and we can't fire someone because we need continuity. That's BS. Make the playoffs. There is a playoff mandate. I want to hear Woody Johnson say it when he speaks later this week because he said he would. Playoffs. Right? Like, it's not unfair to expect a third-year coach and a fifth-year GM with another offseason to get this team from 7 wins to at least 10 and make the playoffs next year. It's not. And if they can't do it, they got to go. And I'm a fan of both those guys, but time to win. Hennessy Heisman says, Sal is a light-skinned Todd Bowles who says quotes. Little unfair. Todd Bowles is a horrific head coach. I'm not ready to say that about Saleh just yet. That being said, Saleh fails to make the playoffs next year, he's going to be gone like Todd Bowles. He'll be gone before Bowles got 4 years. Saleh will be gone after 3. Kyle writes in, do you think Woody sells the team in the next 5 to 10 years? Francesa mentioned hearing rumors. Jets are worth more than the $5 billion that Denver got. I don't know. Woody Johnson's 75 years old. Does he want to keep the Jets in his family, or is he eventually going to sell? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Ken K writes in, you have grown your popularity significantly. You work hard and it's appreciated. No other choice than to give Saleh and JD a year or 2 unless they collapse again next year. Ken, thanks for the kind words, and I'm with you. 1 more year with a playoff mandate, I think, as a fair compromise. I mean, like, how much longer are we supposed to wait? They were 7-4 this year and lost 6 straight. Like, I don't want to hear how great this year was. It wasn't. It was fun when they were 6-3, when they were 7-4, but they ultimately missed the playoffs. It's not good enough. I'm not sitting here saying fire everyone. I am very patient. I'm still being patient. I'm saying give the coach going into his 3rd year 1 more chance with a competent quarterback play, and if he can't get to the playoffs with that, then enough. All right? If Derek Carr or Jimmy G or whoever is playing quarterback next year is not enough for Saleh to get this team to the playoffs, he got to go. Cheeseman says, I predicted multiple play calls to my wife from the couch. That's when you know our OC is terrible. Just an absolutely gut-wrenching end to the season. I was watching with some guy who was a Bills fan today, watching his team. He's like, you guys' offense is so predictable. I go, yeah, you're telling me? We know. The Jet offense is a joke. It's a joke. The last 6 games of the year, they scored 11 points per game. They have 15 points the last 3 games. 0 offensive touchdowns the last 3 games. I'm not doing it anymore. I am tired of watching shit after shit after shit on offense every week. We're not doing it. It has to be fixed. And if it cannot be fixed, this head coach has got to go. He wants to keep LaFleur around. That's his decision. He's going to likely pay the price for that because he won't be here. It's enough. Hire Gary Kubiak, bring him in, and fix the offense. Start there. We're not doing it. We are not sitting through another year of inept offense. It cannot happen. This defense is being wasted. Wasted. Not good enough. I think Saleh deep down inside knows it's not good enough because when asked to say if LaFleur is back today, guess what? He said no. Or he didn't say yes, I should say. Which makes me believe that it makes me feel like he's not coming back. Greg, next up on the show. What's up, Greg?
Hey, my man. Look at the Texans go. They pulled the Jets.
Oh, man. Could you imagine if Sam Darnold converted on a 4th and 20 to who was even on the Jets in 2020 at that point? What receiver was going to catch the pass? I don't even remember. That team was so god awful. And then they go for 2 for the win, and then it cost them the first pick of the draft.
Lovie Smith, baby. He knows he's gone, so he's just coaching his ass off. Good for him.
He wanted to. Jeff fans complain about Woody Johnson. Could you imagine how a Texan fan is feeling about Cal McNair allowing that? The Texans shouldn't have even tried to go down the field on the last drive. They should have caught 3 straight runs, lost the game, go home, get the first pick in the draft, and that's it.
Now the Bears could end up trading their number 1 pick to the Texans and still take Will Anderson and get maybe an extra first because I know the Texans have 2 firsts.
Correct. So people, a lot of Texans fans are like, well, the Bears aren't going to take a quarterback. One, we don't know that. Justin Fields can't throw. This regime also in place in Chicago didn't draft him. So maybe they do like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud better. 2, what's stopping a team now from jumping in front of the Texans, calling Chicago, and getting the quarterback they may want? So
all the leverage in the world.
It's unfortunate for the Texan fan because at least if they finish with the top pick of the draft, they control whatever they want to do. Even if they don't want to take a quarterback, they could trade out and get a huge haul. Now they don't control anything. It's all dependent on what a team behind them does and what the Bears decide they want to do. It's just a terrible feeling for the Texan fan, no doubt.
Eerily familiar as from the Jets. But if Trevor Lawrence was here, who even knows if he would have been like Doug Peterson did a great job in 1 year at that. Like last year was a wash in 1 year. And that's the thing. We hired another defensive-minded head coach, which may be a problem. I mean, listen, I think the defensive side of the ball, Erblich is basically running Saleh's system. If he changed the DC, I wouldn't. He's just running Saleh's system. You know, and they do have a solid, much improved from last year.
It's a very good defense. I mean, Greg, it's a very
solid
good
defense. I think they're young and emotional. So, like, if they see their offensive side of the ball, they're getting that energy, you know. And as for LaFleur, he's too young. That goes on Saleh for picking his staff. He's 33. We should have had someone with experience. The guy, they're all young these days, but really, he should have had someone with experience. And
he's 36 to be fair, but he's still very young.
Yeah, he's very young. And as for Joe Douglas, I mean, he's hot seat next year, him and Saleh. What killed us is that 2020 draft is hurting us because now we have to go into this draft. I'm sure we'll have plenty of draft talk all offseason, but we need a left tackle. I don't want to hear this Mekhi Becton's coming back shit and he's going to be no. He could be a swing tackle if he's healthy. We need a left tackle. We need a right tackle and a left guard. And, you know, he's got to fix his O-line or we're going nowhere. I don't care who's back there, quarterback, David Carr, Tom Brady. We don't have an O-line. It's a wash.
Great, good call. Look, 1A's quarterback, 1B's O-line. I think the O-line is automatically going to be better, though, if AVT's back. Like, you start there. Then you look at, you know, what are you getting from Max Mitchell? I think Max Mitchell could compete with Mekhi Becton next year for the right tackle spot. I'm not relying on Becton, though. I would draft the tackle as well. I think Dwayne Brown retires, and if he doesn't retire, they're going to cut him and save money. You know, the key question is Laken Tomlinson. You know, we had a caller that brought up, you know, the financials of Tomlinson. If they release him after June 1st, they could save money. Here's the problem with that. All the top guards are done after June 1st in free agency. So then you got to use the draft to find the guard. Are you going to be able to find a guard? Maybe you can. The Jets are picking 13 right now. We'll see. The O-line's got questions. I think it can be fixed, though, with just AVT and Mitchell coming back. Maybe you cross your fingers on Becton, but I'm not counting on it. They got a solid quarterback, though. Despite all the issues with the O-line, let's go for what it is. If the New York Jets got average quarterback play this season, they're in the playoffs, even with the offensive line injuries. I mean, in the 4 games Zach Wilson lost, the defense allowed 3 touchdowns. In the game today, Joe Flacco lost. The defense did not allow a touchdown. Like, it's tough to win that way, man. It just is. You have no margin for error on defense. Yeah, the defense could force some more turnovers. Yeah, they didn't get the job done with the game on the line against the Lions. Yeah, they came out flat against Seattle, but, like, it's tough, man. They're not going to be perfect every game. You have no margin for error when you're this inept on offense. And that's the problem. But I can't stop thinking about the first pick in the draft. Would the Bears take a quarterback and trade Justin Fields? Wouldn't shock me. They didn't draft Justin Fields that regime. Alex writes in with a super chat. Saleh needs to spend all offseason immersing himself in the offense. He is clueless on that side of the ball, hence why he never bothered checking Mike LaFleur. I don't know if we know that, Alex. He's going to defend LaFleur publicly. He didn't defend him after the game today. I think he's gone. We shall see, though. Big shout out to someone who just signed up for my Patreon in the middle of the show. So we give them a shout out as we give every Patreon sign up a shout out. Adam Weissler just signed up. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate your support. Go to patreon.com/Jake Asman Show if you want to be a part of my Patreon, where you will get exclusive content every month that won't be on YouTube. Plus, you get ad-free YouTube shows every day. This show will be on Patreon when we wrap up, and you won't have to deal with any of the YouTube ads that come up if you're not watching live. Back to your phone calls we go. Let's go to Ricky NY. He's up next. Ricky, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Jake? And again, thank you. Ever since the Chicago game, you've been probably the best thing about this Jets season. So thanks for doing the good show for us.
Ricky, I thank you, man. Little did I know leaving that game that was the last time I'd see them win this year. My God, I was drenched in the rain that day.
You know, just to clarify, like the financials that guy brought up earlier, Will Parkinson posted it. Laken Tomlinson is going to cost $17 million, but if we cut it, you know, if he's a post-June 1st cut, then we gain $13 million and only have to pay $4 million in dead money. And honestly, the way that he's played, I'll pay the $4 million in dead money. As far as Mike LaFleur, like, oh my God, his play calling was so bad. And during different points of the year, you know, some games we said, you know, it was offensive line. Obviously, the quarterback play was bad at times. But the one consistent thing through all of it was Mike LaFleur and his play calling. And I think today sealed his fate. I think he's gone. At one point, I said, you know, yeah, bring in a guy to be in his ear. So, no, it's beyond that now. I think he's got to go. And I'm not surprised that he's forcing the ball to Garrett Wilson, because even when Zach was healthy last year, he did that same thing with Corey Davis. You know, I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. And it's just as I'm watching the game, people around me know what the Jets are going to do before they do it. I mean, it's obvious the other team does. And, you know, as far as what people were saying about our defense went from one of the worst to number 3. And I'll tell you what, if this offense didn't stink and go 3 and out all the time and keep those poor guys on the field all day, they would have been number 1.
It would help. I think it's a great point, Ricky. Like, as much blame as like you could, like, the defense was not perfect. They obviously were better in the first half than they were in the second half. But in the first half, they had Breece Hall and ABT, and it had a running game. They weren't on the field the entire game. Like, right. How many games have the Jets lost this year where the defense didn't allow a touchdown? A touchdown. Like, I'm thinking about it. Like, you know, there's at least 2 that I can think of. Today in the New England game, the Jets defense did not allow a touchdown, and they lost. Like, that's hard to do in the NFL. That's unreal how inept the offense was this year.
Yeah, I mean, just scoring no touchdowns at all. I mean, you can't win games like that. And I can't complain about a defense that's given up like 9 points a game and 12 points a game. Are you kidding me? What are we even talking about with that? You know, defense was great. And, but yeah, LaFleur, I think today, I think just the fact that last week Saleh said, no, I'm sticking with him, and today he wouldn't answer it. I think we got our answer. I think that after today, there's just no going back to him.
Yeah, Ricky, good call, man. I tend to agree with you. I was 50-50. I said on the show this week about LaFleur. Kind of felt like that Saleh press conference was trying to defend him to Woody, and Douglas being like, look, he's a young coach. I was in this spot with the night. They haven't scored a touchdown in the last 3 games of the season. Zach Wilson got worse, not better this year. I don't think Zach Wilson's perfect by any means, but that has to be brought up in the evaluation of Mike LaFleur. I mean, the Jets have scored 15 points the last 3 games. They averaged 11 points per game over the last 6 games of the year. So this team was 7-4, and then during their losing streak, they went out there, and they only averaged 11 points per game. He's got to go. By the way, I'm seeing it from someone in the comments. I don't want Justin Fields if he's available. No, thank you. 1, major durability concerns with him. 2, I don't trust his ability to truly throw. And the way he plays, I'd be a little concerned. If we're going to go down that path, I'd much rather Lamar Jackson, who at least has shown way more of an ability to throw the football than Justin Fields. I'm good. Let's go to Mr. Downtown. Let's see if he's fixed his audio. Downtown, what's going on?
This is take 3, Jake.
You sound good. I hear you.
This is
there we
take
go.
3. We're good, right?
Well, you better bring some fire takes right now, Mr. Downtown.
Well, what's sad is a lot of y'all that you kicked me out twice, much deserved. A lot of those takes were taken, but I'm gonna see what I have in the bottom of the barrel in my notes here. Jake, you're gonna have to talk me off the ledge, man. I do not know why we should have Coach Saleh get a 3rd year. There is one word in the English language that I think is his biggest flaw, and I'm gonna get a lot of heat in the chat for this. Nepotism. Big old nepotism. He has his boy Booth LaFleur literally giving us basically the worst offense in the last 10 games. We have faced 4 coaches during this 6-game losing streak that have either been in their rookie year as a head coach or in their 2nd year. Saleh has been outcoached. He hasn't been able to take Booth LaFleur and hold him accountable.
Well, what if he fires him now and he comes back with a new OC? Like, if you're going to fire Saleh, who are you replacing him with?
I'm happy you're taking the baton because that's where I wanted to go to. Jake, I do not see a competent offensive coordinator of any clout wanting to come to this team with Saleh and Jody on the hot seat. You mentioned Gary Kubiak. I understand that. But remember what I said in the beginning. Nepotism is a friend of his. How can we trust that Joe Douglas would hold his own friends accountable? If we as a fan base have to start casting doubt that he can't hold his own friends accountable, then the man has lost the fan base, possibly the locker room because he's playing favorites. Can you convince me here that he deserves this 3rd year and why? Well, how can we know he makes the right judgment? And if he does, if he gets the ability to, should we give that ability for the OC to go to Joe Douglas, let him decide, or still give it to Saleh?
Well, thanks for the call, Mr. Downtown. You're a little bit all over the place there. Gary Kubiak is a Super Bowl winning head coach. If the Jets hired him as their OC, that's not nepotism. That's not what nepotism is. Nepotism is Mike LaFleur having a job because his brother is Robert Saleh's best friend, was the best man at his wedding. That's what nepotism is. Nepotism is Chris Collinsworth's son, Jack, being a broadcaster on NBC, despite the fact he is way younger than someone has ever been in that position. Like, that's what nepotism is. We know what nepotism is. Gary Kubiak being brought in as a play caller is what we call a great move, not nepotism. You're saying you want to fire Saleh because of LaFleur. What if he fires LaFleur, brings in a competent play caller? You give Robert Saleh a 3rd year, so you're not just running out another. You want to know why they should keep Saleh? Adam Gase got 2 years. Todd Bowles got 4. Robert Saleh has earned a 3rd year. They went from 4 wins to 7 wins this year. The defense went from 32nd to the top 3. Give him a chance with better quarterback play and a competent play caller. And maybe this team is in the playoffs next year. And you know what? They better be. If they're not, then I'm with you downtown. Then they clean house. But you got to give me a name who you're making the head coach if you're firing Robert Saleh. Your reasons for firing him were because of Mike LaFleur. Your reasons for the Jets being bad were not Saleh related. They're LaFleur related. And what Saleh said after the game today, when asked about LaFleur, leads me to believe that he's gone. I will play it again for those who obviously tuned in late, which I recognize is a lot of you because we've been going for over an hour and a half. We got 700 plus people still watching live right now. This was Robert Saleh being asked about Mike LaFleur.
Are you prepared to say Mike LaFleur will be back next year?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back and do my process. I get it. You know, it is so important for me to go through process. You know, I've said it before. There's just the amount of things and adversity that he's had to deal with this year is you can't just blame one person. There's a lot of things that can go around, and so making the best decisions for this organization is first and foremost.
He didn't say yes. He gave you a bunch of comments. It's unfortunate the Jets lost today, because I was really hoping they could say that the Dolphins would be going up to fire the game. That be nepotism, or that would be a good one? That'd be a good move. Craig Mack writes in, Jets with the 13th pick, trade down for linebacker left tackle. How about this take a tackle at 13 you like? Folks, it has finally happened. The batteries on my iRig have crashed. We don't even need we're just now going to go, computer microphone now. I apologize here. And it finally happened. We have gone too long. I need to change the batteries on the iRig machine. So I just realized that I lost volume there. So hopefully you heard Saleh, because then obviously you couldn't hear me. I don't know when I got cut out there, so I'll just paraphrase my point. I don't even know what my point was, to be honest. I'm totally distracted right now. I think I was talking about Robert Saleh and why I give him one more year. I give him one more year with a playoff mandate and a competent offensive coordinator. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. I think this year has been incredibly disappointed, but I think Robert Saleh, the way he answered that question there, you could kind of hear it, that he didn't want. He didn't want to straight out say he's coming back, because I think he knows deep down inside there's a good chance he's not coming back. And honestly, he might be forced to let him go. And you might say, oh, what if Robert Saleh is like, you're going to have to fire me too? I don't think Saleh is dumb enough to do that. He realizes he's got a good football team that's a quarterback away and improving the offensive line away from really being a playoff team next year. He talked about this after the game. He's like, I believe we're a really good team. I don't think he's going to go to Woody and be like, hey, you got to fire me too if I get rid of LaFleur. And I think LaFleur would be like, don't do that. Like, I appreciate you sticking up for me, but don't lose your job over me. Mike LaFleur will get a job in 5 minutes. His brother will hire him to the Packers staff immediately. So I think LaFleur is gone, but we'll see. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if my audio is okay, because I know, obviously, the mic went down. Thumbs up? Sweet. I see the caller's on hold. Give me that thumbs up. Let's go to Steve. He's next up here. Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Jake, what's going on? Great show. I'm the dad of the great Dave Stein. So first time I'm calling in, but, few points. And I think that we have to, there's some stuff that I'm just still processing. First and foremost, I really would have liked to have seen a little bit more accountability and fire. And I don't just mean it's on me. I feel like I keep hearing from Saleh this same rhetoric. There's stuff to be happy about. There's stuff to be positive about. I think there's some fire that's missing. I think he should be angry. I think they should be embarrassed. And I don't think that I've sensed that from them. On a slightly different take, I do want to stand up for Joe Douglas, and here's why. When we came out of training camp, how many guys in this training camp wound up going to 53-man rosters? Joe Douglas and team's job was to put talent on this roster. They did that, and that talent circumvented in the league. And I think these are two separate conversations. I know that that's probably not unpopular. The other thing is I think the offensive line injuries were a heck of a lot worse than what we were all told, and that's very frustrating them to me. And I think this is a take to have like in the off season, but for the amount of offensive linemen that have gone down on this team, I think it's fair to say what's going on internally. What is the training staff doing to keep these guys healthy? Because this was an ungodly amount of offensive linemen that have gone down. And I think something's missing. And I think that's something that should be addressed in the offseason.
Steve, good call. And thanks for calling in for the first time. Appreciate that. Your point on Douglas, I agree with to a certain extent. I think overall, Joe Douglas has done a very good job as a GM. I mean, this team was the worst team in football 2 years ago. Here they are. They have a roster that was good enough this year to make the playoffs. Now, coaching held them back, specifically on offense. Injuries certainly held them back. But we can't give Joe Douglas a pass for everything. He drafted Zach Wilson. That is a huge miss. That is a huge miss. I like Joe Douglas. I am a Joe D defender. I'm going to call it how it is. He drafted a huge bust with the second pick in the draft. That has to be brought up when talking about Joe Douglas. It just does. Second thing with Joe Douglas. Laken Tomlinson, we're talking about how big of a disaster he is. He signed him. Was Jordan Whitehead this great signing this year? No, he was okay. How about some of his offensive free agent signings? Corey Davis, that was a Joe Douglas signing. That hasn't worked out. He hasn't hit on every draft pick. No GM does, but I like Joe Douglas, and I want him here next year. Believe me, I'm not firing him. He get a job in 5 minutes. No GM is perfect. His trades have been great. His most recent draft class is historic. But we have to put the Joe Douglas stuff in proper perspective. Some of the injuries that happened, he should have accounted for that. Mekhi Becton getting hurt. You don't think Morgan Moses could have been retained, even if you had to overpay to keep him? Joe Douglas has done way more good than bad. But he's not perfect. And some of his signings that we're talking about, or some of the moves we're talking about the Jets having to make, cutting guys, are guys that he just paid, and now we're already getting rid of them. Like DJ Reed, incredible signing. Great job. But he hasn't been perfect. All right? The 2020 draft class looks bad. 2021 does not look as good as we thought it did. Zach Wilson, right now, it looks like a huge, huge bust. Elijah Moore, did we overrate him as a rookie? He did not have a good year, too. Is it all LaFleur? I don't know. I mean, obviously, looking at, go back to 2020 with Braden Mann, Ashton Davis, Mims, it hasn't worked. So Douglas is a good GM, but I don't think we can anoint him and be like, whoa, he's great. If we compare him to McCagnon and compare him to Izek, he's amazing. But the bar's got to be a little higher. It's why I want a playoff mandate for both guys, Saleh and Douglas. Also, for everyone killing Saleh, and you want Saleh gone, who hired him? That was Joe Douglas's hire. So he's got to be held accountable for that. So I like Joe Douglas, but I'm always going to call it how it is here. He's a good GM, but he's not perfect, and they need to go out there, and they need to now make the playoffs next year. Miguel says, you're suffering from serious diarrhea of the mouth. JD's a hell of a good manager. You have no clue what the hell you're talking about. Okay, Miguel, I challenge you to call into the show. You won't because you're a coward, just like all these people who talk smack. They never actually call in. We give them the floor. They never, other than Omar, who's a Zach Wilson truther. I respect the hell out of that guy because at least he calls in. He might be incoherent with his points at times, but at least he's got the balls to call in. You call in, Miguel, and you tell me what I said about Joe Douglas just there that was unfair. Did he hit on Zach Wilson and I'm wrong for criticizing him for that one? Come on, man. Sorry, I don't only talk about the Jets through jet-colored glasses here. Let me get back to some of your calls. I know I got to catch up on Super Chats as well. Let's go to Asman. Asman, you're next up on the show. What's up, Asman?
What's up, Jake, man? What's up? Yeah, a roller coaster, man. It was a roller coaster, but I can tell you one thing: through heaven, through hell, or high waters, Jake Asman is the show, man. Every afternoon I sat in this same spot, man, and I texted you, finding some type of theme for the game, and this season it's been everything. It's been everything, but we're still here. Gangrene sticks together, and that's where we're going. One thing I do want to point out, and I want to second of all, appreciate everything you've done, man. I remember when I was working and I found this guy going live with 20 viewers, and he was taking texts. You were the one who started with the whole thing, like the live, the texting, answering. Now everybody does it in the Jets nation, the people that I follow, and you do as well. I really appreciate what you're doing. I know you work hard. You bring the best. Sometimes in your rants, I'll be like, Jay, don't go that way. But I feel you're passionate. And I just want to thank you about just the season, everything has been said over there. Heading into the next season, all I can say is we need an offensive coordinator, like somebody experienced, a QB coach. We need a maybe, not maybe, we need a QB. I'm just I go back and forth in these because I don't know who that QB is gonna be starting next year. Like if it's Derek Carr, I'm good with it. If it's a Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm good with it. I believe we stick with Wilson. We let him see him, develop him. But we need an OC, experienced OC, experienced QB coach, because next year the expectations are not going to be this year's expectations. We already took that level all the way up, and next year is, like you said, it's a playoff or bust. So we need to hit the ground running.
Amen.
JD, Joe Douglas, as good as he's been, and it's true, you gotta call it as it is. You're objective in the points that you make about the misses that he has had. He has to have a good draft and a good signing market, because there's gonna be a lot of moving pieces. We need to rebuild an O line. Literally, we only have who right now? AVT, Lincoln Thompson. We don't have. You're not bringing George Fan. You're not bringing Dwayne Brown. We got a question mark on Mackay. Right now, we have a question mark on Max Mitchell. We need a free safety. What are you going to do with CJ Mosley? What are you going to do with Quan? What are you going to do with Quincy? Like the people developing behind them. How good are them right now?
Yeah.
There's a lot of question marks. Are you bringing Corey Davis? Braxton Berrios is there. Are you bringing even him? Are you bringing him back? Because you can cut him and save money, so it's a lot of moving pieces, and he has to hit. He has to have a 2023 draft and free agency. He has to hit it. Right? There's no other way.
Asman, thanks for the call, man. You're right. You're right. I mean, of course, playoffs are bust. It's time. Joe Douglas has been here long enough. When do we get to win as Jet fans? I asked that to this fan base. When do we get to win? When? They were 7-4 this year and missed the playoffs. When do we as fans get to see this team back in the playoffs? Should have been this year. If it's not next year, heads got to roll. And once again, there seems to be like some confusion here from some Jet fans I see in the comment section. Like Rich writes in, Jake, respect your view, but unless Douglas walks in the footsteps of Izzik, his job's safe. I agree, fire him. He'll be hired in 5 minutes. I am not calling for Joe Douglas's job. I don't want people to think I am. Listen, Rich, listen to what I'm about to tell you and every Jet fan. Douglas, safe. Saleh, safe. Make the playoffs next year, or changes are going to be made. That's it. He's going into his 5th year as general manager, his 4th full year where he's had a draft and free agency. That's enough time to get this team into the playoffs. The Jaguars are in the playoffs. They had the first pick last year in the draft. The Giants are in the playoffs. They were a pick after the Jets last year in the drafts. It's time. I like Joe Douglas, but a big reason why the Jets missed the playoffs this year is because he screwed up with Zach Wilson. That has to be brought up. He drafted a bust. He's not the first to do it. He's also not the first GM to bounce back from that type of mistake. Howie Roseman drafted Carson Wentz. He moved on, found Jalen Hurts. Les Snead took Jared Goff. He moved on, traded for Stafford. Who's the quarterback that Joe Douglas could bring in that could stabilize this position once and for all? Douglas has done great things. I love Douglas. I'm wearing a Garrett Wilson jersey right now. That was an amazing pick. I love that dude. Sauce Gardner, amazing player. Jermaine Johnson, really encouraging rookie year. Clemens, Max Mitchell. This draft class is awesome. Some of his free agent signings, like DJ Reed, great. Greg Zuerlein, great. Douglas has done some really good things. His trades are phenomenal. My whole point is, at what point does it now become about winning? It should have been this year. It wasn't. They collapsed. They lost 6 straight after a 7-4 start. They need to be in the playoffs next year. That is a fair expectation. That is all I'm saying. I like Joe Douglas. And I'm not saying fire him now, but a year from now, if they miss the playoffs again, I think it's fair to talk about cleaning house. We'll see how the year goes. Julio with a super chat. I'm in the minority here, but if we move from the floor to, let's say, Kubiak, I'd give Wilson another opportunity. Daniel Jones and Geno have improved. You cannot go into the year, though, with just Zach. You can keep him on the team, and you hope that a guy like Gary Kubiak could develop him. but you would need to go out there and still bring in a veteran. Curvin with a super chat. LaFleur constantly has us in 2 and long, gets conservative inside the 30. When was the last time he called a good scheme play? He's terrible, Curvin. I have nothing else to add to that. We've talked about LaFleur for almost 2 hours. He's got to go. I think Salah's answer was revealing today. James writes in, rank the 3 quarterbacks in order to pursue for the Jets: Carr, Lamar, Rodgers, Jimmy G. Rodgers, 1. Lamar, 2. Carr, 3. Garoppolo, 4. That's for me. I don't think Rodgers and Lamar are realistic, though. So once I can't get those guys, I then pivot to Carr/Jimmy G. And I have a funny feeling it's going to be Jimmy G because of the coaching staff familiarity, and he's going to be cheaper than Derek Carr. That's my theory. I'm a little weary of Jimmy G, though. 1, the guy is made out of glass, so you need to have a good backup if you bring him in. And 2, it's kind of an indictment on Jimmy Garoppolo that Brock Purdy comes in and the Niners don't skip a beat. That's not a great look. Just saying. Also, the Niners, who did go to a Super Bowl with the guy, traded 3 ones to move up to number 3 so they could draft Trey Lance as replacement. I'm not in love with Jimmy G. Is he better than anything they have on the team right now? No question. If Jimmy G was healthy on this team, are they in the playoffs today? Yes, but I'm a little weary of Garoppolo. But my gun to my head, if I'm making a pick, that's who I think is the quarterback next year. We'll see. Hopefully it's Lamar. Hopefully it's Rodgers. I don't think it's realistic personally. Alex says, Greg Williams got fired for much less than LaFleur. Amen. Amen. Couple more calls before we get out of here. JJ, next up on the hotline. What's up, JJ?
What's up? What's up? I wasn't even going to call in, but you kind of said you and a bunch of these people in the chat have been saying a lot of craziness today, and I just don't understand. When you look at a football team, you don't look from the bottom up to see what the problems are. You look from the top up. So when you look at what Joe Douglas has done, and you guys keep saying, well, Joe Douglas has done more good than bad, that is not true at all. All right. His first draft was terrible. His second draft was average, if not bad. His third draft was good. All right. Look at the free agents he's brought in. He's only brought in, realistically, maybe 2 good free agent signings, Quan Alexander and DJ Reed. The rest of the free agents he's brought in have sucked. Corey Davis sucks. Carl Lawson sucks. Dwayne Brown injured sucks. Like the list goes on and on and on.
You're too extreme with that. Not all those guys are black and white bad or good. You know what I mean? Like how can we say Dwayne Brown sucks? Dwayne Brown was brought in because Mekhi Becton went down. He tried to salvage the left tackle spot, and Dwayne Brown was good until his shoulder started to fall off.
Okay, so let me ask you this: who drafted Mekhi Becton?
Joe Douglas. I'm not going to defend every move by Joe Douglas, but JJ, you're talking about how the season's a failure because they were 7-4 and missed the playoffs. He did put a roster together that was capable of starting 7-4.
Would you agree with me that there's that saying, you are what your record says you are?
No, I don't agree with that saying by Parcells because I think there's context to a record. I think there's different. Okay. Do I feel good about the Jets 7-10 record when I picked them to go 7-10 before the year? No. Because it's how you got to your record. So I don't believe that you are what your record says you are. There's nuance to it based on how the season plays out.
So here's what my biggest issue with you is, right, Jake? You're very optimistic and you defend these guys until you can't defend them anymore, right? So the whole season, I've been coming on the show. At one point, you even called me a moron because I was saying Zach Wilson was a bust. If you use your eyes and you watch Zach Wilson play, you can clearly tell he wasn't good. If you use your eyes and you watch Mike LaFleur call plays, you can tell he's not good. If you use your eyes and you watch all the things that Coach Salah has been doing this season, you can tell these guys are not capable of getting the job done. But we're going to keep defending them until we can't defend them anymore. And then at the end of the season, we're going to be pissed off next year too and say, oh, well, this and that. There's no more excuses that you can keep using for Joe Douglas because at the end of the day, he hired the coach.
So do you want to fire him? JJ, do you answer my question before you just shit on everyone on this team that somehow was alive for the playoffs going into these last 2 games? Do you want a new GM, a new head coach? Yes or no?
I say what the Jets need to do is get Sean Payton on the phone and do whatever it takes. If you got to give 2 first-round draft picks up, you do whatever it takes to get a competent person running the organization. You're going to disagree and say, oh, why? Whatever excuse you give me, I just want you to think about this. Do you believe that we're going to make the playoffs next year? And the answer to that, and me and you both know, is no. So why are we going to waste time and wait and give these guys 1 more year when they're already on the hot seat, when we can be moving in the right direction with these players now? What's going to end up happening is we're going to miss the playoffs next year again. We're going to have to fire our coach, fire the GM, and then we're going to have to use our good players as collateral to get to rebuild. Exactly what happened when Joe Douglas came in. We had to use Jamal Adams and Leonard Williams and all these guys to get collateral to bring in this staff to then go 7-9, 7-10 again.
All right, I'm letting you go there. The Jamal Adams was a box safety. You want to pay him $20 million a year? They got 2 first-round picks for the guy. That was a great deal. I didn't even want to really pay Jamal Adams when we were going through that saga. Like, I was very wishy-washy on it in hindsight. Like, and Sean Payton's not coming here, JJ. If that's your only answer, bring in Sean Payton. I got news for you. It's not happening. It's not. Like you want to fire Douglas and Saleh after they're in year 2 of this regime rebuilding this team. That's why, yes, I would give them a year 3. If they fail to make the playoffs next year, then they'll make changes. But, like, look at this team right now. Also, Leonard Williams. You want to pay Leonard Williams. Good Lord. That was a good trade, too, by the Jets when they made it. I don't understand a caller like JJ's point there. It makes no sense to me. You are incredibly irrational when you just went through a laundry list of the whole team. You basically said everyone sucks. Everyone besides Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Quinn Williams, and Garrett Wilson apparently suck. Like, I'm sorry, man. Joe Douglas is not perfect, but he should not be fired. He should not be fired. I would love Sean Payton. I'm not trading 2 first-round picks to bring in Sean Payton. That is stupid. Stupid. I'm going to give Robert Saleh a 3rd year with Joe Douglas, make the playoffs next year. You have one extreme basically saying you can't criticize Douglas, and then you have JJ who wants him gone. You can't win with someone this fan base. And also, you're going to have to start all over again if they make the playoffs next year? No, you're not. I'm not going to trade away Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. It made sense to trade away Jamal Adams. That team in 2020 was horrendous with Jamal if he would have been on it. How about fix the offensive line to get a competent quarterback? And I think this team could be in the playoffs next year, JJ. Despite all your issues with the Jets and all your issues with Joe Douglas, you wrote a super chat earlier that when this team was out there and they were 7-4, you then adjusted your expectations that they got to make the playoffs. And because they didn't, it's a failure. But you didn't want to fire Douglas when they were 7-4. What did he have to do with the way the Jets collapsed the last 6 games? The roster was put in position to be 7-4. Is Douglas perfect? No. But does he earn the opportunity with another draft and free agency? Did you see his draft class, JJ? It's the best in your life. They have the offensive and defensive rookie of the year on the team. If Breece Hall didn't get hurt, he probably would have won the award over Garrett. I'm not firing the GM just yet. That's an irrational Jet fan speaking right there. Couple more calls before we get out of here. TWC, you're up next. What's up, TWC?
What up, Jake? Man, hey, I love watching your show when you get feisty. When it gets spicy, I love it. I loved it last season when you're talking about us getting boat raced. So I love it. But
there weren't a lot of Jet boat race this year. They didn't get
no.
That's one.
I love it. I was waiting for it, but it never came up. You when you start your merch store, you got to make the boat race tees. But what I wanted to say is this: I absolutely want Joe Douglas to go out there and get a quarterback. Do whatever you got to do to get Lamar. Do whatever you got to do to get Aaron Rodgers. Something also that's interesting that no one has talked about or said. I don't know how much of a thing this could be or not. I see the Arizona Cardinals are 4th on Tankathon. They're going to get a new head coach. How easy do you think it will be to snatch Kyler Murray from them? I don't know. It's just we need a quarterback. If we have very average, even pedestrian quarterback play, we're a playoff team. And I think that we can't afford to miss this window that we have right now to make the playoffs next season. But man, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the call. No to Kyler Murray. 1, he's now dealing with a torn ACL. He's not going to be ready for the start of next year. 2, that contract is an albatross. No thank you on Kyler. As far as 2 first-round picks for Lamar, I would do it. I'd trade. We had a caller, JJ, wants 2 first for Sean Payton. Get out of here. 2 first for a quarterback, I would do it. Super chat from our guy JJ says, love the show. We'll agree to disagree, but you've been wrong all year. You defend LaFleur, Wilson, Saleh, JD all year. I'm going to continue to defend Joe Douglas. And I'm going to continue to a certain extent defend Robert Saleh. Just because you want to fire them and you ultimately might be right, we'll see what happens a year from now, doesn't mean it's the right move at this point in time. And here's the thing with JJ. I probably could ask him, oh, what other coach do you want besides Peyton? He wouldn't have an answer. Like, name the head coach you're bringing in. Instead of trading 2 first-round picks for Sean Payton, who probably doesn't even want to come to the Jets. You have Robert Saleh, who wants to be here, who in his first year won 4 games. Second year, they're now at 7, and they played meaningful games into December. Now the third-year expectation is make the playoffs or you're gone. That is a fair timeline for a head coach. By the way, he didn't pick Zach Wilson. Like, I just don't think it. Adam Gase got 2 years. You're going to fire Saleh after 2? Todd Bowles got 4. You're going to fire Saleh after 2? I can't do it. Arctic Vibes next up on the show. What's up, Arctic Vibes?
Yo, what up, man?
Or actually, it's Artec Vibes.
Yeah, Artec Vibes, yeah. Man, just listening to like that, not the last one, the one before, talking about how like we should get
basically every player on the team sucks was the point of that call.
Makes absolutely no sense. This season, I think, was just tossed up by the O-line, by our poor linebacker play. Feel like safety does have to do with it, but honestly, safety wasn't like too crazy bad. But I don't think any QB would have had crazy success with how bad that O-line was this year. It was terrible to see. Obviously, like 6-3, I got my father jersey and everything. I was hyped, ready for the playoffs, and then to see it just end like that. I mean, it's just unfortunate. But I do have high hopes for next year, and I think getting rid of the coach and the GM would be one of the biggest mistakes that the Jets can make right now, just because I feel like there's a lot of camaraderie within that locker room towards the coach and the GM, and I think they trust them. So it's just a process. But with Jets fans, you know, we're so used to losing everything. We want everything like now that we don't have understanding that it's just going to take time. So, I mean, that's stupid for me to hear that, you know, just get rid of everybody. Like, nah, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, good call. I mean, that's not necessarily the answer. Like, Saleh might end up not being the guy, but like, there's no obvious solution out there who to hire. He's done enough through 2 years where it's like, we give him a third year with maybe a healthy Breece Hall coming back, some improvements to this offensive line, and I don't know, an average quarterback. Like if Derek Carr is on the team, they're in the playoffs this year. Jimmy G's on the team, they're in the playoffs this year. Like, Saleh's not perfect, and I have my doubts, but I'm not ready to sit here and just bury the guy and say that he can't be the guy. JJ, all caps super chat. I love the all caps super chat, JJ. Thank you. Literally, any coach I say you have rebuttal for, so what's the point of telling you? Not any coach you say. If you give me a coach that you think is better, we could debate it. But we had one guy suggest Todd Monken and then Sean Payton for 2 first-round picks. I don't think that makes the Jets better next year. I don't. If they miss the playoffs next year, and assuming it's like a season like this where it's like 7 or 8 wins is not good enough, I want a new head coach. But I'm willing to give Saleh at least a third year before we just jettison him. I don't think he's a terrible coach. The guys play hard for him. The defense went from 32nd in the league to number 3. He's a defensive-minded coach. Let him hopefully learn from the mistake that has been Mike LaFleur as his play caller and give him one more chance. Like, one more chance before we just, like, assume the Jets can't make the playoffs next year. Like, I don't know. Anyone think the Jaguars were going to make the playoffs this year or the Giants? Like, find a way to get it done. I don't think Saleh is this horrendous head coach. I really don't. I've seen horrendous Jet head coaches. I'm not ready to say that with Saleh just yet. I understand he's lost a lot in the fan base, but I would say this, the honeymoon's over. Make the playoffs next year. We all want it. Vinny with a super chat says, a Carr and Devontae Adams plus great quarterback coach is absolutely necessary to keep our other talent around. Carr and Devontae as a package deal is not going to happen. You can get Derek Carr, that's it. Sad Texan fan says, well, the good thing about all this, at least you're not a Texan fan like me. I am sincerely sorry to the Texan fans that had to watch Lovie Smith go for 2 to ruin the first pick in the draft. Hopefully it doesn't burn the Texan fan like it burned the Jet fan that Adam Gase and Frank Gore won the Ram game and then the following game against the Browns. Alex writes in with a super chat. How does a 5th rounder Sam Howell for a poorly coached team look better in his first ever start in Week 18 versus Dallas? Fire the entire offensive coaching staff. Exactly. They all should go. I'm with you. It's embarrassing, man. Someone wrote the stat in the chat earlier. Would the team go 32 consecutive possessions in a row on offense without a touchdown? That's horrendous. Chris says, what are the chances on getting Brady? I think they're low, but I try. Why not? What do you have to lose? New York Jeff with a super chat. My apologies for not seeing this sooner. We wanted Ulbrich fired first 3 games this year. Keep LaFleur, but bring someone in to help him. No playoffs next year. We fire everyone. I disagree. I think LaFleur has been so bad, I don't think you could keep him, especially if you're truly going to keep Zach Wilson on this team and you're going to continue to develop him. No, thank you. If LaFleur is somehow around, there needs to be, as you said, someone brought in, a Gary Kubiak type to oversee everything. I don't know. I think LaFleur's gone, though, the more I think about it. Someone's got to be accountable for this team collapsing the way they did. Larry says, oh, you think Trevor Lawrence would have worked out better than Zach with Saleh? Yeah, Larry, I have eyes that work, unlike you. Trevor Lawrence would have been better than Zach Wilson. Larry's vendetta against Saleh is going to be so brutal to listen to all offseason. Larry, we get it. You hate Robert Saleh. You write about it every time I do a show. I mean, we understand. You're not a Saleh guy. I don't think he's getting fired. So guess what, Larry? You're going to have to watch him for at least 17 more games next year. FM wants to know, how about Davis Webb as a backup? No, need someone better than Davis Webb. Frank says, tank for Caleb. No, thank you. We're not tanking another season when the roster has this many key pieces on it. By the way, the Jets are not capable of tanking properly. We learned that in 2020. They would blow that too. This team is too good to tank. 2020, they were awful. They should have just finished the tank job. They didn't. John wants to know who I think should be the OC if Frank Reich is unavailable. Gary Kubiak is the name I'd call. Stifler's mom writes in, this is bullshit, and I didn't even watch. Well, lucky you. Someone wants to know what pick did the Jets get? I mean, right now it's at 13. I don't know if it could change based on the results of some of these games right now. But right now it is at 13. A-Train says, Mike White can't be the backup next year because he gets hurt every year like Jimmy G. Disagree. Mike White could be the backup because at least he could come in and he's shown you he's solid. Jimmy G should be the starter in that scenario. And you hope that maybe he stays healthy, but if he has to miss a game or two, you hope it's only a game or two and not season ending. Larry brings up that Gase and Saleh both had 23 losses after 2 years. Larry, you know what you conveniently leave out? Adam Gase won 7 games in his first year with the Jets after they started 1-7 and then beat up on Matt Barkley, beat up on Mason Rudolph. Go look at the teams the Jets beat in 2019. And then Adam Gase went out there and the team started 0-13, and then they went out there and won 2 meaningless games to finish 2-14. Stop comparing Gase to Saleh. You know nothing about football if you're going to try and sit here and tell me that Robert Saleh is somehow a worse head coach than Adam Gase. He's not. But if you want to tell yourself that, try and fit your narrative. You're no better than the Zach Wilson truthers. Adam Gase was the worst head coach I have ever seen. He's the worst Jet head coach since Richie Kotite. Comparing him to Saleh, even if you don't like Robert Saleh, is an asinine argument. Alex writes in, does Mike LaFleur sucking help Zach's trade market now? Maybe. But I don't think you're getting much for Zach Wilson. Antonio says, Jimmy G, cold weather, I'll pass. Who do you want then, Antonio? This is my problem with Jet fans. No matter the name you say, someone hates it. Got news for you. When you miss on Zach Wilson, you're not going to be able to sign Joe Burrow or Josh Allen in free agency. All these quarterbacks that you're interested in bringing in all have issues. No one is perfect. There is no perfect option. All right? You bring in Derek Carr, people are going to say, oh, well, I don't know if he can handle New York. I don't know if he can handle playing in cold weather. Oh, he led the NFL in interceptions this year. You bring in Jimmy G. Apparently cold weather for him is now a problem. Oh, you bring in Jimmy G. Well, he can't stay healthy. Every quarterback they bring in, there's issues with them. That's why they're available. There is no perfect answer out there. So I know we're about to do an entire offseason of this guy sucks. We need this guy, but this guy sucks. So we actually need this guy. There's no perfect answer. They better just get it right. They need competency at that position. Antonio says, Carr is a bum. Jimmy G, stay hurt. All right, name me a quarterback then, Antonio. Quarterback guru Antonio. Name me the quarterback that's going to fix the Jets' offense next year. Give me a name. Jack says, Derek Carr is slightly above average. Yeah, his average season's the best season a Jet quarterback's had since Vinny in 98. His average season. Aaron Rodgers. Okay, yeah, Aaron Rodgers would be my first call to the Packers. And then when they say no, then what, Antonio? A-Train says, do you trust Douglas and Saleh to get the next quarterback right? I'm going to be skeptical because I'm a Jet fan, but I'm at least willing to give them the chance to do it. JRG with the worst comment of the day, and that's saying something because Larry is still commenting that Adam Gase is somehow better than Saleh. Russell Wilson for Zach Wilson. I rather not. New York Jeff says, take the loser quarterback of tonight's game. Look, I would love Rodgers. I would love Goff. I don't think Goff's getting dealt. I was talking to a Lion friend of mine. He thinks that that the Lions are going to actually extend Jared Goff, especially if they win tonight. Larry says, this team just lost to Skylar Thompson, Jake. Yeah, Larry, they started Joe Flacco. Guess you don't want to bring that up. They started Joe Flacco, and 3 starting offensive linemen did not play today. In addition to the fact they already were without AVT and Mekhi Becton on that O-line. John says Sam Darnold. At least that's a name. I would not bring Sam back. I don't think he elevates you. But at least that's a name. Antonio says there's a bunch of quarterbacks to get, and they all have problems, dude. Name me a quarterback that is the perfect quarterback option for the Jets. Jordan Love. All right. Do you want Jordan Love? He's unproven, has never played. We have no idea what he is. Taylor Heineke. No, thank you. Not good enough. FM says, how about Baker? Not very high on my list, but I would take him over Sam Darnold. Or I guess I would take Baker Mayfield over Jordan Love. The point is there's no perfect option. Daniel Jones is not leaving the Giants. Vinny wants Boomer to play quarterback. Well, let's bring back Namath. Or what's Vinny T doing? Why not? Trade for Davis Mills. No shot. Trin says, if we hang on to Zach, how long is fair to let him cook before you put him out there? I don't want to put him out there at all next year. 0 games, Trin. If Zach Wilson's on the team next year, I hope it's his QB3 and he doesn't play. They need a veteran. This team is ready to take a step forward from 7 wins to hopefully in the playoffs next year. They cannot go into the year with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Is Cousins available? No. Trey Lance coming off injury, unproven? Yeah, that's going to work. No. This is my point. You bring up Jimmy G and Derek Carr, who are the most realistic, likely options for the Jets, and then people say they're terrible. Oh, and then you start naming other guys, and they're even worse. Mark says, Jimmy G or Goff. Perfect fit. If they are willing to trade Goff, I would be okay with Jared Goff. I don't think it's going to happen, though. Jimmy G is the most likely because he's a guaranteed free agent. Super chat from Alex before we get out of here. Would it essentially cost the next 2 drafts for the Jets to trade up for Bryce Young? I mean, it would cost from 13 where they are now to get up to number 1, probably 2 ones. You won this year, you won next year, and extra picks. I'm not making that trade. Bryce Young, I think, is the best quarterback in the class. He's not like Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck, like he's this generational prospect. How about this Rams-Seattle game going to overtime here? Imagine being a Lions fan watching this right now. Larry, I take everything I say out of context. Romano wrote in. Jake said last week honeymoon was over, but now it's all excuses. Larry, last week I said the honeymoon was over because it's playoffs or bust in 2023. Once again, Larry, get your earballs checked. You need to go to an EMT. Your ears are not functioning. You can't listen properly. It's exhausting. Playoffs or bust next year. New York Jet says, to be fair, LaFleur, Flacco accounted for 3 losses, should have been 4. Zach wasn't ready. Mike White hurt ribs. Too many offensive injuries. Bring in help. Despite all that, and those are fair things to bring up, the Jets offense averaged 11 points per game the last 6 weeks. Despite all that, the Jets offense had 0 offensive touchdowns the last 3 games. They scored 15 total points the last 3 weeks. Not good enough. Main man says, just go with Jimmy G and end the agony of all the talk. I think it's going to end up being Jimmy G with Mike White back as the backup, but we'll see. We will see how it plays out. Stifler's mom with a super chat says, the Texans fumbled the number 1 pick. What a joke. Yes, they did. About to talk about it for 4 hours on local radio tomorrow. FM with an asinine comment saying, we need a number 1 receiver to complement Wilson. No, you have a number 1 wide receiver. You need to complement Garrett Wilson by getting a receiver better than Corey Davis and finding out whether or not Elijah Moore's regression is all Mike LaFleur, or is he just not as good as we thought he was coming into this year? They do need another receiver. How about the Giants scoring a touchdown? Kenny Galladay finally doing something. Giants going to give me a nice backdoor cover on my plus 14.5 bet. It's actually a hell of a catch by Galladay. Anthony says, what do we need to trade for Carr? I'm not convinced he's getting traded. I could see him being released. The Carr stuff will happen quick because it's going to be 3 days after the Super Bowl. His contract's guaranteed. So they'll release him before then if they can't find a trade partner. Derek with a great point. He says, compliment Garrett Wilson by getting a competent quarterback to throw to him. Amen. Alex says, according to Houston fans, Akins equals the new Braden man. Yes, he does. How about Lovie Smith going for 2? Just incredible. And it worked. The Texans haven't looked that good on offense all year. Then the last drive, 4th and 20, they're picking up first downs. They're scoring touchdowns. They're going for it. It's just insane. A couple more, then we're getting out of here. I can't believe we've gone for over 2 hours today. But it's final post-game show of the year, so I appreciate everyone who's taking time to watch. Rendella says Flacco played okay today. I mean, I guess. Didn't turn it over, which is nice. They scored 6 points, though. He was 18 of 33 for 149 yards with an average of 4.5 yards per attempt. Quarterback rating of 66. I mean, I guess he was okay for Flacco, but he wasn't good. One more from Larry, who says, it's funny how all these Salah apologists are surprised by this collapse and have no idea what just happened. I think we know what happened, Larry. The Jets offense went out there, and over their last 6 games, they averaged 11 points per game. You won't bring that up, though. It's apparently all Robert Salah. It's all his fault. Larry, find a different show, man. You need to start your own channel called I Hate Robert Salah. Robert Salah is Satan. And you could do your rants there every day. We get it. You don't like Salah. I got news for you. He's coming back. You're going to have to deal with him for probably at least another year. Antonio says injuries caught up to us in the end. Unfortunately, they did, but that's not an excuse. This team still should have been in the playoffs. JE says we need linebackers and safeties that are good in pass coverage. Safety, I think, is a bigger need than linebacker. I mean, but still, we're still talking about a defense that's going to finish in the top 3. I mean, the Jet defense lost 2 games this year where they didn't allow a touchdown. They got to fix the offense. That's a bigger deal. It's the NFL in 2023. JRG says draft Stroud. The Jets are not going to be in position to draft Stroud. Code Out says, I'm over Wilson. Time to shop the market for a proven quarterback. Look, Zach could be on the team next year. I personally think he'll be traded, but he could be on the team next year. What he can't be is the starting quarterback going into the year. They need to go out there and they need to acquire a proven veteran that could come in and provide stability to that position. League average quarterback play, and the Jets are a playoff team this year. They need that next year. FM says, how about Will Levis? You really think the Jets are going to be able to develop Will Levis? No, thank you. I'm not taking a quarterback in the first round. They need help on the offensive line. That's where that pick should be used. Jay says Zach needs to just go away. It's essentially what Robert Saleh said go on vacation, go read a book, get away from football for now. Aiken says, will we have our quarterback by February? It is possible if it's Carr. If it's not Carr, you're going to have to wait till free agent starts. Jets Gang says, how many picks have the Jets spent on O-line? Well, Mekhi Becton was a first-round pick, and AVT was a first-round pick they traded up for. And then, obviously, they used a fourth-round pick on Max Mitchell. Trying to think of other offensive line picks they've used. I mean, Douglas has tried to pour premium resources into it. You could predict Becton getting hurt. AVT going down. I mean, that's just unfortunate. NY Jeff says, why waste assets? Trade Wilson for Carr. Jeff, some of you Jeff fans are, Jeff, you're delusional. The Raiders are going to laugh if you offer Zach Wilson for Derek Carr. They don't want Zach Wilson. Hey, we'll trade you our bust of a quarterback for your quarterback that might have value and you can get draft picks for. Why would they do that? Boomtown says, is there any chance that if the Bears move, the number one, it isn't done before draft night? Yeah, it could happen before draft night, sure. Remember when the Jets traded up from 6 to 3 to get Darnold? That was done on St. Patrick's Day that year, a month before the draft. Remember when the Rams traded all the way up to go get Goff? That was done like a week before the draft. And when the Eagles moved up to number 2, same thing. So it could be done before the draft for sure. Damien says, what's the most you'd give up to get Carr? A mid-round pick, because you don't need to give up a lot, because if they can't find an adequate trade partner, they're going to cut him. Jay says, what's Sauce's status? He finished. Sauce Gardner said the Jets are going to be in the playoffs next year. I loved hearing that. Love the confidence he brings. He had one of the great rookie seasons we have all ever watched. We all might ever watch. Sauce Gardner is going to be on the first team All-Pro team, most likely, as a rookie. Think about that. We watched one of the great rookie seasons of all time. Chris says, Jets trade for Tunsil. I would do whatever to get Laramie Tunsil in a heartbeat. I would trade my first-round pick to get Laramie Tunsil and then sign him long-term. Guy is a stud. Had an all-pro season at left tackle. I would do whatever to get him. I don't know if the Texans are going to move him, though. If they take Bryce Young, who's an undersized quarterback, why wouldn't they want to keep Laramie Tunsil? Anthony says, Derek Carr actually wants to win. Yeah, I mean, I think Derek Carr is a competent quarterback. Is he perfect? No. But once again, Jeff fans, unfortunately, there is no perfect answer at the quarterback spot. I want to thank everyone who took time to watch. Jeff says that the last comment was a joke. Jeff, sorry. YouTube doesn't let me read sarcasm. Appreciate all of you for taking the time to watch today's show. This was the last post-game show that we've done. We did 17 of these. We were live after every single Jet game. Some were a lot happier than others, but I appreciate all of you who took time to watch today's show and any of the videos that we put out on the channel throughout the year. Reminder, if you want more content away from YouTube, I'm on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. For just $5 a month, you'll get this show ad-free, every show on YouTube ad-free. Also, you'll get exclusive Patreon podcasts that will not be available on YouTube. It's Patreon only. First one likely dropping later this week. You can message me directly on there, and when the merch store launches this year, you'll get discounts on all the items. So check it out. It's patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. Shout out to my guy Nick, who says he loved the airport post game. That's right. We did 2 airport post games this year. One from Vegas and one from the Newark airport. So we've had plenty of different locations. I did a post game show from my car outside of MetLife Stadium after the Jaguars debacle. So I appreciate everyone who watched. Jet fans, we're all in this together. As disappointing as this season ended up being, we know it's going to be a crazy offseason, and we're going to have a ton of content here on the channel each and every day throughout the entire offseason. Thanks again to everyone who watched. Be on the lookout for another video tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys soon. Hopefully everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend. Let's go Jets, baby.